the unknown, down the rabbit hole, where it stops no one knows. We're going head into the unknown. Na, 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 na.
Hi, everybody. Hold on, my camera's not on. Hi, you guys. Happy Thursday? Is it Thursday? Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to everybody. Hi, Carol Claus. Hi, Rainbow Mom. Hi, 1960. Hi, Anna. Let me hold on. It's going. Hi, Savvy's aunt. Hi, Margaret from Scotland. Hi, Bodine. Hey, Dom. Hey, Vanessa. Hi, Wheelbee. Thanks for being a member. Hi, ATS. Okay, Bruce. Sweet Caroline. Dun, dun, dun. Hey, Ramblin'. Hi, Tony. Hi, Dina. Did I say hi to Dina already? Hi, Music City Mom. Hey, Jen. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, RJ. Hi, Aussie True Crime. Hey, Tia. Salty C's in the house. Hey, RJ. Sounds like Anna. I know, I was just doing my accent. Hey, Deets. Good to see you. How is everybody today? Salty C, been a member for 13 months. Salty, I think you were one of my first members. 13 months. That's just crazy. Can't even believe it's like been that long to even have members. Well, cheers, Vicky. I said cheers. You sound like you're from London. I don't know why I always revert to that. No matter where you say you're from, I always do the London accent. That's just how it goes. Let me see. I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. Hi, Thistle. I know you get Allie and me in one day. What? What? Man, so much is just like, so much is happening, yet nothing is happening. I don't know if that makes any sense, but so we've got we have a finale, somewhat. Well, it's a pretty big finale that they caught Danilo Cavalcante. He's such a good boy. That doggy, Yoda. Yoda is that dog's name, and I am in love with him. The Belgian Malinois. So, we've got him, and then he starts talking. So I'm curious if he's going to say anything else, which is why I say maybe not a finale, because like what else could he say? But hey, you never know. Hi, Marshall. Hi, Tia. Have they made a decision allowing cameras yet? Nope, not yet. Not yet. They just went to court yesterday. Oh, you just finished the McDonald video. Okay, so let me talk about that for a second. I posted yesterday a documentary that I made on Jeffrey McDonald. It is an older case, obviously. It's from the 1970s, even though it's been litigated up until 2020. I know it's not for everybody. I get that. I get like, you know, it's not like the trendy, it's not the happening right now. So if you guys watched it, I just want you to know I appreciate it. It's a lot of times I try to make content that I know that you guys are all going to like, but then there's sometimes like, I'm like, there's just cases that mean something to me. And like the documentaries, I've kind of always said, like, I want to make a documentary that just puts together all the information that I've researched over the years of doing research for true crime. And it's kind of almost like it's for me too, because I have all this info like in my brain, and I want it to be put together in a way that you guys would understand what was in my brain, which is just complicated as it is, but that it tells the story of these people that have always been something important to me. So I've been trying to do, like I did the one for Gannon, I did one for Suzanne, I just did the Jeffrey McDonald one. And like I said, I know that it's not for everybody because it's an older case. It's just, I want a place that I have all of that information, and that, I don't know how to say, but like that piece of me, I guess, that piece of me is put together and in one spot. And I know, like I said, I get it. It's not for everybody, but I appreciate you guys for taking the time to watch it. I appreciate all the feedback. My personal feedback to myself as I listened to it once it posted to YouTube, was I thought the music was really loud, and it wasn't that loud in my editor. But nobody commented that. So I don't know if you guys thought that or not. I don't know why it was like that, but it really bothered me listening to it. And I actually went and redid it in the editor and was going to take that down and repost it, but I didn't. But I thank you guys. Thank you guys for watching it. Thank you for, thank you. You do documentary very well. It's put together perfectly. Thank you. Watched it this morning. Thank you, Inspector Gadget. I appreciate that. So like I said, the documentaries are for you guys, obviously, but they're also for me. Because like I said, I need a place to be able to put that information that was stuck in my brain that I need to get out, so that I could put other information in there. And that's just kind of how I did it. That's how I do it. Okay. So I will be doing more of them. They do take a long time, but they're basically just based on the cases that I have just invested a ton of research into. And people keep asking me if I'm going to do a Watts one. And I keep telling them that ATS did a really, really good one. And I don't know if I even want to try, because hers is amazing. And Watts was something that I was so into. And I struggle with going back to anything Watts. So I don't know about that. Even though Shanann and Bella and Cece, man, I love them. I don't know. Maybe that'll be one of the later ones that I do. It's not going to be one of the first ones I do. I just can't. Okay, you didn't think it was too loud. Oh, Inspector Gadget. Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Okay, I'm glad that you guys didn't think it was too loud. You can't even have been alive through the McDonald case. Well, I was born in the 70s, if that counts. I just turned 44 on my birthday this week. So I wasn't alive during it, but I have been alive through a lot of the litigation, and obviously all the documentaries. I think I have Fatal Vision. I don't know if you guys can see it in camera. Yeah, maybe you can. It's right at the very top of my bookcase right there. Fatal Vision. It's up there. I've watched every documentary that I could, but there was a comment made on my live that Joe McGinnis's wife has done some type of interviews, or there's been commentary from her that I've never heard, which I was like, wait, there's a piece that I've never heard. What? So I'm an exennial. Am I crime sleuthing? Am I an exennial because I was born like on a cusp? Is that what that is? I don't know. I don't know my millennial stuff. Watts is, oh, I know, but I'm telling you, Watts is overdone, but there's still people who question things, and there's still people who love digging in and finding anything they can out about Watts. I don't know. It's just, for me, I don't know, it brings back just crap. I am going to do a Summer Wells one. That is one I'm going to do. I'm still working on Leela Cavett. I can kind of tell you the cases because, I mean, they're just part of who I am. So I want to do an Idaho 4 one, even though ATS's is amazing, but I think I can still do that one. But that won't be, I won't do that yet. Summer Wells. Maybe I can't tell you off the top of my head. Let me think. Todd Mullis. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the corn rake killer. that trial. Actually, I covered that with Jen Liu on her channel when I very first started my own channel, and I'm not convinced that he's guilty. So I'll do that one because he was convicted. I was 79, crime sleuthin'. 79, right at the end. Hey, BG. Hey, Bruce. Hey, oh, Jeannie, you're 44 too? Yeah, I don't even get it. I don't even know where. I'm like, how the hell am I 44 years old? Like, there's so much left to do in the world, and I'm like halfway done. I don't know. Like, it's weird. It's a weird feeling. Well, thank you for saying I don't look 44. I appreciate that. When my oldest was little, and this is totally a side story that really is not relevant, but when my oldest was little, he would argue with me. Like, he was adamant that I was a year younger than I actually was. So like when I turned like 36, he was adamant that I was 35. Like, there was no getting around it. Like, he would get mad that I was trying to tell people I was 36 when he, on my birthday, said I was 35. He just wanted me to be a year younger. And I was like, I can't get mad at the kid for it. Quentin Simon is one. Yep, that is one. Here, I said, I mean, you'd think I would know them all off the top of my head, but Quentin Simon, Kyron Horman is one that I would like to do. You know, his 21st birthday would have been like a couple weeks ago. I would like to do that one. Timothy Pitson is another one that I talked with Mal with Malicious Intent because she was talking about covering it, and I was like, I'd love to cover that with you. It was one that I looked into a lot. Let's see what else is in here. Because like I said, I mean, I have so much stuff that I would love to do one on Scott Peterson and Lacey Peterson. That's another case that I was very into. JC Dugard, that was another big one. Heidi Broussard. Heidi Broussard's getting a Lifetime movie. Did she already get it? Nah, she's not getting it, but you know what I mean. Her story is getting a Lifetime movie. Oh, thank you, Richard. I appreciate it. Oh, Melmac, but you can rewind. Hey, Lisa. Early 30s. Thanks. I'll take it. I'll take it. So Murdoch, if you guys remember Murdoch, I knew of Murdoch, but I never like followed it like intently. It was like just like I just kind of knew what was happening and like kind of who the players were until the trial, and then I was sucked in at the trial. Hey, Lucia. Oh, really? Did I? Hi, Hot Mess. Adrian Jones is a good one. RJ, I thought that if they were going to find Suzanne, they probably already would have. At this point, if somebody's going to find her, it's going to be just an accident. Like they're not going to be out actually looking for her. Hey, Lippy. John Benet Ramsey, that's a big one. So those are so tough. Just like this, even this video I did with Jeffrey McDonald, it's so controversial. It's such a controversial case because people believe either he did it, people believe that he didn't do it, it's just, and there's so many like rabbit holes within the rabbit holes, I would say. And that's how John Benet is too. Like some of those bigger cases that have been around for so long, you know, it's just, it becomes very hard. And then I tried really hard to not put my own opinion into the video because I wanted you guys to come up with whatever your opinion is without mine. That makes sense? Oh, yeah. So you saw the financial stuff was today. Sorry, my leg itches. And freaking Corey Fleming. This is Murdoch, by the way. Corey Fleming got 20 years. Well, he got more than that, but most of them were concurrent. So he got 10 years for one and 10 years for the other. Hey, Foxy. Oh, Chance is a good one. They still never found him either. You silly hot mess. You're a silly hot mess. The Girl Scout. And how about the yogurt shop murders? That was another one that I looked into. I was like looking at my files. Kendrick Johnson. Gabby Petito's a good one too. I mean, I say good one. I hope that you guys know that I don't mean like it's a case that like for me, I don't mean like good one, like, oh, that's a good case. Yeah, it's great that happened to her. Delphi, which we're actually going to touch on today. My Dorman boys. I don't even know if that could be a documentary. That guy, I think, is still going to plead guilty, but I still can't let them go. Hey, 10. Yeah, Judge Newman was not messing around today. He was like, it's not my job to give you leniency. It's my job to deliver justice. I was like, ooh, but still, 20 years for some financial crimes. Like, I get it, but we've got people in jail or in prison for murder for less. So that kind of bothers me when it comes to like how our system works is like, he didn't kill anybody. And we've got people in there. Oh, Rebecca Zahow. Yeah, you know, we had her, Michelle and I had her family's attorney on like last year, and it was fascinating. That's another one. I have that book too. Yeah, what else do I got? Oh, Golden State Killer. That's only because I love forensic genetic genealogy. What else do I got up there? There's so many Watts books. I got Lori Vallow stuff. Yeah. Hey, Peyton. Hey, Alyssa. I was so obsessed with Rebecca Schaefer stalking murder case. I grew up during that time and I was a fan of hers. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Oakley Carlson. So Oakley Carlson is a case it's almost kind of reminiscent of like Murdoch in my mind because I know a lot of the people, I know a lot of the players, but I've never dug myself into that case. You know who Michelle was? She does everything with that case. So like everything I know would come from her. You were lazy today because you didn't sleep well. Aww, you were too busy watching the manhunt. Hi, malicious intent. Hi, Mrs. M. Maura Murray. I've heard of it. I remember bits and pieces of it, but what is never one that once again that I dug into. The Rainbow Mom is back. Hold on. We moved into the same military housing not long after. Did you really? Did you really? Oh, that's interesting. A friend of mine used to babysit some kids that lived in the house, in the McDonald house, long after, years later. I think that was actually when maybe the house had actually been rebuilt by then. I'd have to go back and ask her. I don't want to spread misinformation. But I know that she babysat like in that house or the house that, because it's like a duplex. So she was right there. But I don't want to give out too much information because I don't remember it very well. So I don't remember her story that well. I just remember she used to babysit kids like right there. Ooh, that is creepy. Maura Murray case. I'll have to dig into it maybe. Lisa Lee, you got a job offer. That's sweet. Was it a good one? Malicious intent. I mentioned to you earlier. I was talking to him about Timothy Pitson because that actually part of that case went down where my dad was a cop. They did. They tore down the house, but not for many years. They left it up and they left it boarded up. The house, Jeffrey McDonald's house, was boarded up for a long time, and then they ended up tearing it down and rebuilt right there for more military housing. Hi, Kaleidohope. Hi, Queen Bee. I miss you. Queen Bee to you. Oh, the Girl Scouts happen just miles from you? Ooh. My hometown has a cold case now 20 to 30 years in the making. They need to get some forensic genetic genealogists on it. Solve that bad boy. All right, let me see what else I missed. John Walsh's son. So I actually wrote a paper on that. That was another one that I wanted to do was Amber Hagerman, was because I did a whole thing on the Amber Alert. Like I wrote a huge paper on like the Amber Alert, how the Amber Alert became, why they actually used, that John Walsh's son, Adam Walsh, that when you're in a store and like a little kid is lost, they actually say code Adam, like over the speaker, so everybody knows that there's a little kid lost, and that's because of Adam Walsh's, that's because of Adam Walsh, John Walsh's son. Hi, C-Dub! So I did a whole thing on that, and I was thinking I wanted to do, I'm going to do Courtney Clenny. That's another one I want to do. Just looking, I'm trying to see what you guys. I know you did, Queen, and that is the most important thing. Nobody would live there. Dad said they still talked about it, and most people thought he did it. I do think he did it, but I think, damn, that's some reasonable doubt. But how much was she fed the story to know the details? I don't know. It's very convoluted, but where his pajama fibers were found just makes no sense that he did it. Yes, Georgia, I did. I said Delphi, and we're actually going to talk about that because of the defense's motion for cameras. They call code Adam. They're supposed to lock the doors. Yep. And it's funny because, I worked in retail for many years, and I don't think I ever put 2 and 2 together until much later in life. Aww, C-Dub. The different blood types it is crazy. It's crazy because, like, they didn't have, like, any type of DNA testing. And sometimes I refer to it as DNA testing, even though I know it's not. It's blood typing. But that's like old school forensics right there. And how lucky they got with the fact that everybody had a different blood type, and they were able to track that around the house to see how he committed the crimes. And it's actually the case that I think about when I think about a case like the Idaho murders, because they can track now, even more so because of the DNA in forensics, they can track exactly how everybody passed away, or not how, but the timing of it, like who he attacked first, who he attacked second, specifically because of the fact that the murder weapon is the same murder weapon for all of the victims. So they'll know when he takes the blood from one victim to I know that sounds terrible, but it at least creates, at this point, it'll create a better story for the prosecutors, because I'm telling you, the way that juries find people guilty is based on the story that's told by a prosecutor. And if they can actually put it all together with the evidence to back it up, then that's how you get the guilty verdict. It's when the prosecutors kind of go all over the board and you don't really get it. So this forensic story will actually, if they tell it correctly, then, I mean, the jury will be able to see how it all actually happened. Hi, Punksy. Hey, sweet Melissa. Okay. So I had a whole live that I was going to do last week, and I was so wrapped up in that freaking video, just like every time I get into a video, that I can't like think outside the box. But I wanted to talk about all of the documents that came out for Idaho about the genetic genealogy and everything that happened with that. But I'm gonna do that at a different time, because right now we got the camera situation going on, and I want to touch on that first. And then I think, because I just finished that documentary, and Leela's is about halfway done, but I'm not sucked into it right. My brain isn't sucked into it at this moment. So I think that I can stay away from it for a hot second. And I think next week, if you guys want to, because this is up to you guys. I remember I had put together all of the media clips of everybody from the families, the prosecutors, the liaison, like the public information officer. I put together all of them. It's like 6 hours long. So we were going to do it'd probably take like a week, maybe 10 days to go through everything with commentary and talk about what we hear. If you guys want to do that, I was going to do it before because we were about to start trial in October, but now we're not. So I don't know if you guys want to go through that now, even though we're not going to be going to trial, or do you want to wait and do it closer to trial? I mean, it's already made, so it can just sit there. or we can start like next week, or we can talk about a different case next week. So I'll leave that up to you guys. You let me know, yes, no, you want to start going through all the old interviews. You know, I mean, I've tried to pull everything I could find, anything and everything. Chitty chatty Meg. There's the foxy in the box, eh? I'm waiting to see if any responses pop up. Hey, Sugar Magnolia. It's good to see you. Would it be better to do it now, or would it be better to wait until we're actually closer to trial? That's kind of the thing, because the whole reason I put it together was a refresher going into trial, but I mean, it's like I said, it's done. So what's up to, it's really up to you guys. If you guys want, I had to listen to them all when I pulled them all. So I just heard most of them. Okay. So we can start that. We can start that next week if you guys want to, because it'll be quite a few days. Okay. Closer to trial, Punksy said. Okay. Let's see what else you guys say. I'm down whenever, or both. We could just do both. Okay, but today I want to talk about the camera stuff. So you guys can let me know, you know, what you guys think. Thank you, Alyssa. I appreciate it. I do plan on doing more. They just are very time consuming, and then I miss you guys because I can't do lives most of the time when I'm sucked in. It's typically like at the end of making the documentary that I get like super sucked in, because I can feel like how close I am to being done with it. Then I'm like, okay, I just need to get it done. I just need to get it done. I just need one more hour. And then the next day it's like, I need one more hour. And I originally, that Jeffrey McDonald one, I was like, this is going to be 20 minutes, maybe 25. And then it ended up being 43. So, okay, so today I want to talk about the cameras, and I know that you guys have probably already seen a lot of this. This happened yesterday. So yesterday afternoon, there was a hearing that the court held with the lawyers for the media coalition. So basically, these lawyers represent anybody who's in this media coalition that wants to fight for cameras in there. And hey, Chris. So the media coalition, and if you look into the docs themselves, you can see like all the media outlets are like, hey, no, we want we want cameras, we want cameras, we want cameras. I think most of the public understands that we or would agree that we also want cameras. Did you cover Amber Heard and Johnny Depp? All the sidebars are ready for viewing. I did cover Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, and I have not gone back and listened to any of the sidebars. Yeah, like right when you get to the end, this is like you're stuck. You got to do it. Okay, so, but before we do that, I want to show you guys a document that was released for Delphi. Obviously, different case, different state, but it has to do with cameras. So the defense. Oh, TikTok was amazing, Aaron. TikTok was amazing. Hey, Eris. So I got stung by a bee. I want to break free. Like I said, this is Delphi, but it was important because of the fact that this is from the defense team to the court in regards to cameras in the courtroom. Let me see, make sure it's big enough for you guys to see it. So this is Richard Allen, who, if you guys are not familiar with the case, I'm not going to go into all the details, but he is on trial for killing Libby and Abby in Delphi, Indiana. Gosh, how many years ago is that now? 7? 6? 7? Long time ago. On February 13th. And they just arrested him. I shouldn't say just, but it still feels like it's so fresh. But they got him at the end of 2021? Oh, shoot. Anyway, like I said, I'm not going over the facts of the case, thank goodness, because then I'll be all over the place. I can't have too much info in my brain. Hey, Music Art Love. They better have cameras in the court, otherwise I'm not going to follow the trial. Well, this is exactly what happened with Lori Vallow Daybell, is they didn't have cameras in the court, and a lot of people didn't end up following the trial. They just waited for the end of it to see the result. But that's what they want. That's what the defense and the prosecution in Brian Kohberger's case basically want. They want people to stop talking about the case. They want people to stop following it, because then that way it's not as sensationalized. This is what I think they're hoping for. So I wanted to talk about this because this is Richard Allen from Indiana, and his defense team has requested that there be cameras in the courtroom. So it comes down to defendant Richard M. Allen by counsel, all the codes, in support of said motion. So respectfully request that this court issue an order authorizing the public broadcasting of future courtroom proceedings in this case. In support of said motion, defendant Allen states as follows. Rule 217 of the Indiana Code of Judicial Conduct generally prohibits broadcasting, televising, recording, or taking photographs in the courtroom in areas immediately adjacent thereto. However, the rule was recently amended, empowering all Indiana trial court judges at their discretion to authorize the broadcasting of legal proceedings in the respective court proceedings. The rule permits public broadcasting so long as the means of recording will not distract the participants or impair the dignity of the proceedings, and so long as broadcasting is restricted to non-confidential proceedings. It won't let me go up for whatever reason, so I have to make it smaller. Sorry, you guys. The rule permits public broadcasting so long as the means of recording will, I already read that one. The facts and circumstances surrounding this case have attracted the attention of the public on a national level. Now, this is important because this is the same as Idaho 4. It has attracted the attention of the public on a national level, if not even at this point now more so than Delphi did. Hi, Allie. And even the attention of others around the globe. As a result of this attention, the system of jurisprudence in the state of Indiana will be scrutinized in a manner that is unusual and rare. The public's thirst for information in this case offers up an opportunity for transparency and the education of the public in terms of the day-to-day operations of courtrooms across the state. Courts should make court processes as transparent as possible so the average person can witness the judicial system in action. A highly effective way to do this is to proactively take steps to disseminate information in high-profile cases. This prevents interested individuals from having to search. Let me see if it'll go to that one, the next one. The internet, looking for information about the case, which may come from biased sources that substitute commentary for fact. Very important. Very important. Because that's exactly, and I'll show it, but we're going to touch on that from the hearing yesterday, that the Media Coalition attorney literally says that. She's like, there's putting this out into the public is making it transparent. If you try to hide it, it makes people think you're doing something wrong. And this defense attorney gets it. From bias sources, substitute commentary for fact. Courting public trust and confidence, effective, A recent article released by the Conference of State Court Administrators, the need for transparency within court systems across the country was identified as one of the handful of recommendations to increase the public's trust in our judicial system. The article was favorably considered by the Community Relations Committee of the Judicial Conference of Indiana, all of which is referenced in 2023 February, the meetings. The recent pilot program in which the special judge in this case participated concluded during the spring of 2022, and feedback from the participating judges and other relevant professionals include, but are not limited to, the following. The judicial branch is the least understood branch of government. And here you've got millions of Hoosiers, because that's what Indiana is, counting on it for justice every year in Indiana. So why not pull the curtains and say, okay, this is what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it. The sky is not going to fall since there are safeguards in place. This is exactly how the majority of people feel about Idaho. I keep losing my place. The Idaho Supreme Court is lifting its ban on courtroom cameras and how it should impact future cases. The media has been patient with delays in the hearings and for the most part has been unobtrusive and accommodating of the sheriff's security concerns regarding camera placement. They have been professional in their coverage and presence. Once the hearings start, everyone seems to forget news media is present. So that's from the judges. Okay, so this is why I think this is extremely important. There's a couple key points that just really line up with what we're talking about when it comes to Idaho. The fact that it is so secret, people don't know. We just went through a huge high-profile case in the state of Idaho that they took cameras out of, and most likely are going to go through another high-profile case that is attached to that one in April of 2024 and not have cameras there either. So there is no transparency happening. If another case, another high profile case happens in Idaho, and we have now Koberger, and they take the cameras away, what is going on with the Idaho judicial system that they do not want the public to see? That's a problem. That is a problem for taxpayers in the state of Idaho. Hold on, I'm just looking to see what's going on. Okay, you guys talking to each other. I don't think that people do fully understand the judicial system, and I do think that having cameras in the courtrooms is important for people to have a look. Well, one, I enjoy watching trials because I learn so much all the time, and it's intriguing to watch trials from different states because different states have certain different laws on the way that things can be done. But it's a learning experience, and for anybody who is in like a true crime community or wants to see the justice unfold. Let me pull this down real quick so I can come back up. That wants to see justice unfold, wants to be able to actually see it with their own two eyes. We don't want to hear it from mainstream media. Most of us now know that mainstream media cannot be trusted. I'm sorry, they can't be. YouTube media can't be trusted either. Not everybody's out here just to tell the truth. Most people are out here for clicks and views. That's exactly what it is. The sensationalism of mainstream media and the sensationalism of just YouTube channels, it's atrocious. And so Judge, Brian Koberger's judge, he even states like the media is kind of out of control. The difference is the media is out of control with speculation because of the secrecy surrounding the case. Everything being sealed, everything being redacted. And I know that to have a fair trial, a lot of that needs to stay where it is. And I'm not too worried about it. But this goes to the same thing about the cameras. But why would you hide everything at the trial? The trial is when justice is supposed to be happening. So if your reasoning is to keep everything hidden now to get a fair trial, why would you keep the trial hidden? It never makes sense to me. And the defense always wants to use that my client can't get a fair trial. They're not going to have a fair jury, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, so then keep cameras out of the courtroom for all of the motions hearings, which I still think is ridiculous. Keep cameras out of the courtroom for the motions hearings, but now you've got a jury. They're done. They're already seated. You're good. You've got your alternates. There's no reason to keep them out of the courtroom once trial starts. That is shady to me as somebody who does pay taxes. At this point, I think that there just should be a camera that is set up in every single courtroom and feeds, and you can just watch whatever the fuck you want to. You can just go in and there it is. So they've been so transparent with, saying that they're transparent, that they're not, or saying that they're not transparent, that now everybody just makes up their own stuff. Hey, crazy mama, give me cameras or give me nothing. Oh, some do. I'm so tired of I look at YouTube and I'm like, okay, that's clickbait. somebody's like, oh, so Nancy Grace says da 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 da, and it's like Nancy Grace isn't on your channel. So yeah, I know that you're playing Nancy Grace, so I get it, but it's like, do people think Nancy Grace is going to be on your channel to say whatever? I don't know. That's an interesting thing to me. It's very clickbaity. The constant breaking news, it's breaking. Well, did it just break? I mean, like if I did a live today, like breaking news, will there be cameras in the courtroom? Is it really still breaking? It happened yesterday. So should I do that? So I'm like, it's like they lead you in a direction that I'm not necessarily sure that it's not. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Yeah, he's camera shy. Bullshit. The guy isn't camera shy. Errors is always spicy. Oh yeah, so that's the other thing. So then the defense tries to argue, but then they're taking the pictures and they're making memes out of them. And poor Brian, his fly was down, and so now he can't get a fair trial. And I'm like, you think that you're going to pick a juror who's going to be like, I'm sorry, but I saw the picture of his fly down, and that guy is guilty. Like, no, that's not how it works. They're looking at pictures and memes of Brian Koberger with his fly down and correlating that to his guilt. That's not what's happening. It's just, it frustrates me. So then this other thing. So the prosecution, who originally had come forward and said, we'll leave it up to the court, and the court can make the decision on whether there should be cameras or not. No, now they changed their mind and they're like, well, we think that our witnesses might be nervous if there's a camera. What? Are they looking in the camera? I mean, is the camera like in their face? Or are they like being filmed? Because guess what's going to happen? And she said this, the coalition lady wasn't as mouthy. And I think that she probably needed to be a little bit more firm in her answers. She started to get that way, but you could tell at the beginning she was nervous. She says, like, you talk about like just like chaos. Wait until all the cameras are outside of the courtroom. Wait until one of those witnesses who was shy on the stand has to walk out of the courtroom, and now you have cameras in their face, like physically in their face. Because that's going to be chaos, because you're going to have that outside of your courtroom every day. The witnesses are already traumatized. I mean, but they're not sitting there telling the story to the cameraman. So that's the first issue. The second thing that they talk about is that the cameras are facing like Brian Koberger and the defense desk. So then the public can see the strategy that the defense team has to defend Brian Koberger. One, if you had a strategy to defend Brian Koberger, you wouldn't have waived his right to a speedy trial. We would be going to court on October 2nd. You don't have a strategy. That's why you waived right to a speedy trial, because you need to come up with one. So that's my first thing. Number two, we can't see what you're looking at. And the problem is they wanted the cameras in the spot that the cameras are in, so they wouldn't be able to just focus on Brian Koberger. And now they're going to complain like, oh, now the camera's over here, so now we know they can see what we're doing. It's like, you're not doing anything. This is your issue. Your issue is that you don't have a strategy to defend this man. So now here we are having to figure out ways to continue to delay the trial, which makes me think you're guilty or he's guilty. So anybody who's pushing a guilty narrative here, it's them. The fact that he was going with the speedy trial to me was like, this guy knows he didn't do it, and he's ready for them to come forward and say, show me the evidence that you think I did it, because I didn't do it. Now I'm like, no. I mean, not that I thought he was innocent before, because I don't. I think that I shouldn't say innocent or guilty. What I do believe is they are prosecuting the correct person. I think that we are on the right track, but now we're just talking years down the road. I want to hear what's going on real time. So right now, they put the cameras in the courtroom, and then they release the feed later. Yes, Allie. Yes, I'm done. I don't even watch anymore. Like, there's just a lot I just don't watch. So if the issue becomes the cameraman, and as bad as the cameras were for like Letitia Stout's hearing, just think if we actually had a good camera system that was put up into the courtroom, and it doesn't need to be moved around and everything else. It doesn't have to be like manned technically. You can just watch the feed, but it's a better feed because we don't need like a weird, I don't even know, WebEx-y type of feed. A good feed, like a court TV feed, but it's just a stationary camera that shows the courtroom itself. I don't see why that would be such an issue. And if you think that the cameraman is the issue, or if you think, here's the other one, they're like, it's not even just the cameraman that's the problem. It's like the editors. Like, it goes back to mainstream media and then it gets edited. But the original content is there. So anybody that wants to watch it should be able to watch it. I can go and watch the entire hearing yesterday, which I actually have up. I can watch the entire hearing and I can make up my own mind about it. Now, I get, they're like, don't focus here and don't focus here. But why can't we just have the whole courtroom? And she made a good point yesterday, the coalition attorney, I should figure out her name. She made a good point because she was like, the media is under the impression that you told them they couldn't solely focus on Brian Kohberger. Not that they couldn't focus on him ever. So I think there's like a miscommunication. But Judge seems to be really pissed off at the media. So, but this isn't new. This is the thing. It's like, it's not new. Mainstream media sensationalizes stuff. YouTube videos sensationalize stuff. It's how it goes. It's not new. So he's like, I've been really supportive, and maybe, what does he say at the end? Maybe the media will like listen and heed my warnings to like be careful. And then maybe he'll make a decision. But he does talk about in the hearing, he talks about that he thought about putting like a stationary camera in. He thought about putting a stationary camera in. Yeah. Oh no, there is definitely good YouTubers. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely good YouTubers. It's just all over the place, just like mainstream media. If I were in that place, I'd want the world to hear my case and my defense, but his alibi. So this is the other thing. Why wouldn't you, as the defendant, want to make sure that everything that happens in that courtroom people can see if you're innocent? If you're being railroaded by the prosecution and what they're doing is extremely unethical, which is what they continue to basically claim, why wouldn't you want the world to know that? Why wouldn't you want the world to see that? Okay, well, that's actually, so we talked about the Delphi one, which is just so interesting, the timing of it, that they're like, no, we want everybody to see it. And I'm like, now that's intriguing that Richard Allen wants the cameras to be there for him and watch. And it holds people accountable. If you're going to be on camera, and it's going to last forever. And then all those people who did or would sensationalize whatever, because, okay, so think of it like this too. Like Barry Morphew's hearings, towards the end, because there was a YouTuber who chose to air the court hearing, they ended up taking cameras out of the courtroom because it was stated that you could not air the court hearing, and they did it anyway. So they took cameras out of the courtroom. So for his other hearings, you had to sit there. So we had to find basically a reporter that was sitting in there and follow their live tweets to see what was happening. Much like the West Boys case. You could watch it, but you couldn't, you couldn't actually air it. So you had to kind of follow along on, you could listen, but you couldn't watch. Because if he was innocent, they wouldn't care about cameras. That's how I feel. Now, like I said, that's my personal opinion, so you guys take it for what you want. But you guys may have seen this. Some of you may have, some of you may not. It's okay. I've watched it a few times, and we're going to watch it again together. So Steve Gonsalves, which is Kaylee Gonsalves' dad, goes on Brian Enton yesterday. Or nope, not yesterday. It was actually 2 days ago, but I think it popped up yesterday based on the hearing for Oh shoot, I need to bring it over here first for you guys. The hearing for cameras and what he thinks about it. And if you guys haven't seen it, I also can pull that up for you. Is the statement that was made by the Consalves family and the Kernodle family, which I found very interesting, that states that they do believe that there should be cameras in the courtroom. Crazy Mama's all, I hate being on camera no matter what. I just don't. The excuses of why they don't want cameras is just bullshit to me. That's where I'm drawing the line on all of it. You're coming up with bullshit to try to get the cameras out of the courtroom because you don't want them, and that's where my issue comes in. Because like if you look at Richard Allen's, they're like, hey, we got nothing to hide here. Put the cameras in the courtroom. Exactly, Mrs. O. Exactly. That's how I feel. We should just have a camera in every courtroom. You could just go and watch the judicial system unfold all the time. And let's see how people are really treated. We want, body cams on every single cop, right? And we want to see everything. So if it comes up, we can go back and actually look at it ourselves and make a decision. Well, that's transparency. And that's what the public has called for. So, almost every police department by this point now has them. There are tactical teams that do not have to wear them. SWAT, I don't think, has to wear them. There are some law enforcement agencies that do not have to wear them, but for police departments themselves, it's like mandatory. So if something was to happen, we could go back and say, this is exactly how it went down. This is what happened. This is how it happened, so on and so forth. Take, for instance, that lady the pregnant lady who was stealing that got shot in the car by the cops. The initial reports were the cops just shot, an African-American pregnant lady in the car. Like that, like nobody knew anything. We were just like, holy crap, again, like seriously? But then when you watch the video, she's trying to run over the cop. So if we didn't have that, then the initial response is anti-police. Sometimes the initial response is just pro-police. And then we see things and we're like, no, there was no reason to go as far as you did. Those are cameras. They're body-worn cameras. I just don't know why people think that they can just take that right away because they don't like the technology. There needs to just be some state mandates or even federal, but I know federal won't do it because they count on the states to make their own crap. But that it should just be, we should just be able to watch whatever the hell we want to watch. We're the taxpayers. Why can't we see it? And they're like, and then they do the whole, oh, well, you can come and sit in the courtroom. If you want to watch it, you can come sit here. Like, okay, no, I have 3 kids. I can't just go to Idaho to watch a trial. It doesn't work that way. Lucky I don't live in Idaho. I'm not a taxpayer there. But still, you get my point. Hi, S. Hockett. But he's got very good legal representation. I think that I'm actually so pleased that he has such good legal representation because then there's not going to be any like, oh, my incompetent attorneys. So no, I am happy that she's his attorney. I think she's pretty badass. Yeah, if we had to watch that, we can handle this. And I am totally okay if they don't want to show anything that's graphic. I get that, as much as I'm somebody who doesn't necessarily care. I get that as a public, most people don't want to see that. And as a mom, I know I would care if it was my own kid. So I respect that. So I get that. Oh, that was another thing before I play this, that they're talking about like these, what are they called? What are they? Vulnerable witnesses. Was that the word that they used? It might not be that, but it was definitely a synonym to that. Vulnerable witnesses, like they're children. These kids aren't children anymore. These kids are 18 and older. And I know that they're still in a very weird, very impressionable age. But we can't treat them like they're 5 either. And I think that saying like, oh, well, their testimony shouldn't be filmed. Why? Why shouldn't the cameraman shouldn't be up in their face and being like, oh, tell me, and being disrespectful. But why would the camera not be able to film their testimony? I thought that was very weird. I was like, no, I don't think that's how that's going to work. If she was 12, then maybe. Hey, Julie, is it possible the request for no cameras from the defense is being done as an avenue to stop any appeal later? I'm not familiar if they would qualify. They should not. They should. The only way that they would be able to file for an appeal when it comes to anything to do with the cameras is the cameras creating, and this is what they tried to say, was that the cameraman was like zooming in on his fly. And since the cameraman was zooming in on his fly, they're creating prejudice in a jury pool. And so that Brian Kober is not going to have a fair trial because the jury pool is now going to be, upset that or just biased to the fact that he's guilty based on mainstream media. It doesn't really work because what actually happened was it was just some dude on Twitter, I think, or some other thing that actually took and zoomed in on his fly and created the meme from that. Mainstream media didn't do it. It was just some dude on social media. So they're like, well, it may not have been the actual camera guy, but we're giving the opportunity for more memes to be made based on, having more footage. I should just play this. I mean, maybe I will. But so the defense tries to say that this is going to minimize the memes because memes only last for so long. Like people don't, like once they, kind of, it runs its course and then they can create a new one. And I was like, is this guy serious? Does he not realize like some memes like last forever? And the fly meme isn't going to last forever, but there are memes that these kids are like in their 20s and 30s and they're made into memes years ago, and we still use them to this day, or I do anyway. This is why we can't have nice things. Okay, let's watch Steve first. I need to get off my what do you call it? Not pedestal, but whatever. My high horse. I'm so frustrated about the camera situation because I already was so irritated about it with Valo and so irritated about it with West. And they're just like trying to take away our freedoms to be able to see what they're doing, and I think it's bullshit. And there isn't I kind of get what they're saying. I don't feel that way. I don't get what they're saying. I think it's crap. If you don't tell the witness, or if you have people testifying that are nervous about being in front of the camera, don't tell them where the camera is, and don't have a cameraman. Have a stationary camera that's just there covering the court. Soapbox. Thank you, C-Dub. I knew you'd have my back. Some compelling testimony has come from Bibbs. Let me see what I missed you guys. I'm sorry, but that cameraman probably can't even find his own line. It was his first day on the job. KW10, hey, yeah, both sides are now going saying, oh yeah, we don't want cameras because they don't like the sensationalism that's happened. Punksy. No way. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. How old was I know I'm sorry about both, but how old was the daughter? Like a little one? Because I can't handle those. That's tough. Hi, Dolly Bear. No, it's not just Idaho because the West trial was in California, and they ruled that we could listen to it live. You could not record it though, and you couldn't play it. No, so it's a lot of places, and like the one from Richard Allen, Indiana actually had it where you couldn't put any cameras in courtrooms at all, and so they actually went in and said, no, we're going to leave it up to the judge's discretion, which is where it mostly is in most states. It's up to the judge's discretion. South Carolina, Judge Newman, he likes to have cameras in his courtroom because he likes people to see when he lays down the law. That guy always has cameras in his courtroom. Okay, I'm over here like still not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You guys are distracted. Stop it. Stop making me talk to you guys. I'm trying to get this out here. Punksy, let me see. Punksy. Did you say how old the babe was? I missed it. I just got the call. What? That's just crazy. Oh, Punksy. Everybody send Punksy some love and prayers. She's going to need all the love. Love to Punksy. School age. I know that it's still not as bad. I mean, it's not worse. Everybody's life is worth something, but I don't know a kid. You know how I feel about these dang kids. Like, leave the damn kids alone. Kid didn't do nothing to you. Hi, Princess Megan, Elsa. God damn. Bullshit. Did he do it? Did he take himself out too, Punksy? Cowards. Freaking cowards. All right, I'm going to mute this. Me too, crazy mama. I'm going to mute this. I'm going to let it play. You guys make sure you send Punksy some love.
Cameras, the community needs to determine who this individual is. You cannot ask for the community to do the death penalty without their vision, without their support, without their understanding of all the aspects of the case. It's more than just the jury members. It's the community. It's a message for everybody to understand. In Idaho, this is how we work. We're not the same as Chicago. We're not the same as Miami and New York and LA. This is how Idaho perceives a major incident, and this is how we react to it. And we have the resources to do that. So I don't know what removing the cameras really provides other than a gap. And we've had a gag order in this case, and that didn't work out well. You hear about other people who've been placed under a gag order. It doesn't seem that the Constitution works well with this constitutional time of when it's okay to speak about, I don't know, I don't want to say the truth, but I want to say when people are going to speak about a case and let the audience decide what the truth is. A gag order is an old version of controlling the narrative.
Okay. I couldn't agree more with him. I don't know. He looks like he's just exhausted at this point in life, and now he's going to have to do this for at least another year, which is crazy too. But he talks about, like, you want Idaho to sentence this man to death without actually seeing everything that led up to him being here. And I thought that was really intriguing the way that he said that, because it's true. If you don't know all the parts and the pieces, and I get, like, a jury's supposed to basically go in almost blind and not know anything about the case, but watching all of these things and seeing all of these things, it is important for a jury to be able to say, to be able to look back and go, hey, we feel better putting this man to death based on the totality of everything and not just the little bits and pieces, if that makes sense. It was just interesting. It's obviously not the way that the court system works. We don't want that in our jurors, but it's an interesting perspective.
Can't control it anymore with, social media, TikToks, and, like I've said before, it's not NBC, ABC, and these three medias that control this narrative. The whole world sees everything. So pretending like you can control, and what are you trying to control? Are we just displaying truth in action?
That right there. What are you trying to control? Why do you not want people to see it? Because if it is just truth in action, there's no reason to not have cameras there to be able to see it. There's no reason that the public should not be able to watch the truth unfold. And I'll be very honest, I go back and forth with the Gonsalves family, because I cannot imagine that their pain and their loss. And knowing my own personality, I would probably very much be like Steve. If something ever happened to one of my kids, I would be very vocal and very out there, and I would just say the shit that was on my mind. I mean, shoot, I do it on here when it comes to other people's kids, so I can only imagine if it was my own. So I would probably be very much like him, but even though sometimes I'm like, Steve, don't say anything, Steve, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. As an outside perspective, because I'm like, I know that it's going to be scrutinized, but he's saying some very, very important things in this part. Like, what are you trying to hide? If you're only talking about the truth and you're only talking about the actual events of what happened, and you're not making shit up, there's no reason to not show that to the public. There's no reason. So who cares if there's a meme that ends up from Brian Koberger not zipping up his fly? How does that affect justice for the 4 victims? And I don't know if we'll be still in here or not, but before we started the live, he actually said something in the chat, and he was like, people need to stop like forgetting that the 4 people who actually lost their lives. And then somebody else was just talking about, like, why do we pay more attention to the potential convicted murderer versus the 4 people who cannot stand up and speak for themselves anymore? They're gone. There is nobody to speak for them except for their parents. And as much as I get the prosecutor saying, like, like they're the ones that are representing the law on this side of it, how do they not consistently communicate with the families who are now the only spokespeople for these 4 victims? Okay, sorry. I'm on one today. Sorry, guys.
To me, the courtroom is truth in action. So why do we hide that?
Were you surprised, Steve, to see the prosecution also now say that they don't want cameras?
I want to say yes, but I'm shocked at how many times the prosecution and the defendant are on the same page. And then there's some certain things that they have in common, and they rise up. They rise up over and over and over. I won't say them now, but if they keep rising up over my daughter's truth and justice, then I will just call.
Okay, I'm going to go back just a second here, because this was something that I caught when Allie was live and she was playing this that I didn't actually catch before. What is
over and over and over? And the defendant
Say that
Here.
they don't want.
that he talks about, like the commonalities between the prosecution and the defendant. I'm going to play it again so you guys can listen, because I was typing in chat, but this was weird. This is a weird way to say this.
Cameras.
I want to say yes, but I'm shocked at how many times the prosecution and the defendant are on the same page. And then there's some certain things that they have in common, and they rise up. They rise up over and over and over. I won't say them now, but if they keep rising up over my daughter's truth and justice, then I will just call them out on those commonalities that they have.
What the fudge does that mean? What's he mean, right? Yes, what does he mean? Hi, Jeanette. Okay, K-Bird, that's okay. So what do they have in common at this point? They now both don't want cameras in the courtroom. They both did not care if the house was demolished, which I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care if the house is demolished either. So I kind of side with that. There's 90% of crime scenes are not visited by a jury. So it's not as important, and especially with the technology that we have today, where they literally will go in and do a 360 camera, and the jury can actually see the entire thing. The other part of that is a lot. If your crime happens outside, do you make it so that nobody can ever walk on that spot again? Nobody can ever see that spot? It doesn't really work that way. You collect the evidence, and once it's done, it's kind of done. I think it's good that they ended up not demolishing it, just because, once again, that's what the family wanted. They wanted the ability for people to go there if they chose to, or the jury to go there if they chose to. But for me personally, you watch so many trials that nobody ever goes to a crime scene, and most crime scenes they're not even scenes anymore. They're not a place. You know what I mean? They're not like a building. Okay, so back to what he means. What else have they agreed on? Yeah, they might ask to see it. But I mean, look at like Lori Vallow's case. What's the crime scene? They're going to go to her apartment. They're going to go to his house. So it's kind of just it's not as important in the trial as I think they think it is, because most jurors don't ever see a crime scene. But some juries have. The jury did go to Moselle, yes. Some juries have. I'm not saying that it's impossible, which is why I said I think it's good that they didn't do it. But in the scheme of all trials, it's not always necessary. I mean, look at Letitia Stout. That jury didn't have to go to the house to see what had happened. But he's saying that they have commonalities. That's the only two I can think of, is that they didn't care that the house was demoed. They don't seem to agree on much of anything. So what do they have? And he doesn't say, if you guys listen, he doesn't say that the prosecution has things in common with the defense. He says something like the prosecution has things in common with the defendant. And he's not going to say what they are, but if they are put above justice for his daughter, then he's gonna come out and start saying stuff. I don't know. Yeah, he said the defendant. I don't know. So that's something that I'm going to keep close ear on when he does talk about other things later, because I think that was pretty interesting.
I mean, I just want a camera. I just want the truth. I just want everyone to see what's going on. That makes me radical. Okay, I'll live with that.
Makes me radical too, Steve.
Shannon, does it matter what the families think in the eyes of the court? I mean, I've seen the filings from the prosecution, defense, the media. Does the family have a say when it comes to the cameras?
Well, I mean, ultimately, I can't speak for the prosecution in this case or the defense in any way. As an experience as a prosecutor, as a former prosecutor, and we always listen to the victims. A lot of times, the victims have an opportunity to speak to us about resolutions, how the case might be resolved. Certain things that go on during the case, we want them involved in along those lines. And so, I think that's part of the family putting out the statement today, was to voice their opinion about what they thought about having cameras in the courtroom, and hoping that people were listening to what they were saying. So I can't speak to the prosecution or the defense and what they might be thinking. So,
I mean, in your role representing the families, does the prosecution come to you with situations like this and say, what does the family think about cameras?
Well, we had.
This is another important part. Why isn't the prosecutor asking the opinions of any of these family members? I don't get that. Why is their opinion on whether the house be demolished and I get the prosecutor has a job to do. The prosecutor is there to make sure that justice is served. But this, them not having any input on anything is very interesting to me before they make just the rulings. It makes me think of Letitia Stout, with the way that Michael Allen was with Al Stout, and even with Landon. There may have been things that they didn't know going into that trial that they found out during the trial, but it never seemed like there was a distance between the prosecutor and the family. It always seemed like they were in they were in contact. I mean, they got in trouble even for calling each other by first names. Like he was calling him Mike and he was calling him Al. And they're like, yeah, you got to stop doing that. Like they almost like they were friendly. It's just weird to me that they're not communicating, especially even after the family went and got an attorney, which is what they do say you're supposed to do, is to have like an attorney or some type of liaison for your family or for the victims' families in this circumstance, and law enforcement and the prosecution. Right? No one will ever protect your child or loved one as a parent. Yes, I will never not speak up for my child for anyone. I also have a job to do as a parent, and it's what you promised to do. Yes. Well, he did. He did something. They did say that they were going to basically sue because of just everything that they feel is an injustice to them at this point, which once again is an easy fix. It's an easy fix if you do just start communicating. And if there's a question asked that you can't answer, you say, I know that that's an important question to you, but at this time I can't answer that because of XYZ. It's almost like they just don't like each other. And that's a weird thing. And I don't mean to just talk about Steve. Obviously, most people talk about Kaylee and most people talk about Steve and the Gonsalves family because they're the most like out there in the media and talking. But I think about like Ethan Chapin's parents, who basically said that they won't even attend the trial because it doesn't change anything. And I've thought that. That's why I'm like, if he asks the question that they're like, sorry, we cannot answer that, we won't answer that, but let him ask whatever the hell he wants to ask. Let him say whatever the hell he wants to say. Right? I mean, you're working for justice for his child, for their children. Okay, here we go.
We were always hopeful, but I think that's the reason we put out the statement today. I think if we had been approached or asked in some way about that, at least the Gonsalves family, I'm not sure they contacted. I don't know. I can't speak to see if they've contacted any of the other families. I don't think they contacted the Cornoodle family or the Mogans about the courtroom cameras in the courtroom, but they did not contact the Gonsalves family through me to ask us what our opinion was. And the family stressed to me that they thought it was an important thing that the world know and people know what they thought about it, and that they thought it was important that cameras be in the courtroom. And so that's why the statement was put out by the family, to let people know what their thoughts were.
In the statement, Steve, it says that the case is surrounded by secrecy. Can you elaborate on that a little more? Like what you guys meant by that?
I've talked with multiple family members and I want to be respectful for everybody's viewpoint. And there is some fear that the cameras will record things that are gross. They're not ready to have their friends and family members come to them and say, hey, did you hear about this or that? And I understand that. I really do. So they come to me and I reflect what they're saying. I absorb it, and then I also tell them from a legal perspective, from my lawyer counsel, it's hard to really argue what a camera is going to be in a courtroom negatively. Like we're here asking for somebody in the community to judge this individual. So let's just hang it out there. Let's show every aspect and every fact that I feel is a fact. The community should agree that that is a fact, whether it's DNA or whatever it is. So, but I still respect all these family members and their own individual processing of their preparedness for what's about to happen. And it's terrible. You really cannot prepare yourself to understand that the legal system is going to drag all of us through the mud. And that's the only way you can get to the truth. So if I'm going to go through the mud, I'd rather have all the witnesses that I can possibly have than to create a narrow bubble there in Latau County in Moscow and say that, I want to have the support of everyone, that the justice was put in place and the evidence was that clear.
I'm thinking about, them wanting to tear the house down, the university, and sort of the fight over that. And now not wanting cameras, and the prosecution also not wanting cameras. And they gave their legal arguments, which, I guess makes sense in one way, that witnesses might be scared to testify with cameras rolling, especially like emotional witnesses. But I'm also wondering, like, do you think any of this is connected? Like, without cameras, the story sort of goes away, the town doesn't look as bad. Without the house, you don't have to think about it every day. The school can go back to normal. Like, do you think it's all connected, or do you think it really is just sort of legal? Like, both sides just don't want the cameras for the legal reasons.
100%. The reason I'm talking to you right here, right now, is because there is capital business decisions being made on top of justice systems. So no, there is no way to pretend like these all equal and they all equate to the same motivation. Somebody's going to lose, and it isn't going to be my daughter.
I love that. I love that. I can't even tell you guys how much I love that statement right there. Like, it's not going to be my daughter that loses. And he knows that there's political shit that's happening behind the scenes, for the fact that it's the town, it's a small town, college town. Our kids not going to want to go to school there. What does that do for local businesses? I mean, let's be real. It's a huge impact. There's also the reverse side of people who want to go there just because of the crime and want to go and see the house. And so then it brings in a whole nother set of people that aren't necessarily there to support the town. They're there to look at the house and look at the things surrounding it. But like he said, somebody's going to lose in this, and it's not going to be my daughter. And that's why I'm talking to you, Brian Enton. Hi, Ange. Hey, Trina. I do too. I think he says too much sometimes, but I mean, obviously, like I said, I feel like I would be him. Like, if you were going to be one of the parents of these four, like, which one would most represent the type of parent you would be in a circumstance like this? I feel like I would be Steve. Of course you were, C-Dub. Of course you were. Yeah, okay. Here we go.
I will sit here. I will speak to every single microphone, every single camera before I go to court and after I go to court. If you force me to do it, I'd rather the courtroom speak for itself than me. I don't want to speak. I'm actually quite a private man. But if you force me to protect my daughter, then I will speak at every moment that I have to do just that and protect her. And that's what we're doing today. We're protecting the truth. We're protecting where the truth is going to go. The truth needs to be in that courtroom, and a camera will never, ever hide the truth. So why remove it? Why do you remove a camera? Well, maybe it'll protect you from, like me, I misspoke. I might say something wrong, but I'm a father. I can deal with that. The repercussions of that is fine. But some people seem to be scared of the repercussions of their mistake. And I say, just embrace it and let the community decide what the truth is. We either got the guy or we don't. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. And just a few more questions. Since Koberger waived the speedy trial, I think we all thought maybe the trial was going to be really soon, and now it could be far away. I mean, How are you dealing with that? Are you still processing that? I mean, I feel for you guys having to like continue to live in this weird like legal limbo.
You give up all your notions of normal when something like this happens. And you hope that your community feels for you and embraces you, hugs you, and says, we're going to take care of this. You know, you hope that your community says, we're here for you and we're going to make this right. And that's why I'm there, for them to have the vision and the cameras, and everybody needs to be in that room, because they're the ones that are wrapping their arms around me, Chrissy, and our children. They're saying, we're gonna do, like, this is an outsider. He came here to hunt these dumb hillbillies and teach us about uh what he said was like cloud computing and forensic. He thought he could come here and hunt dumb hillbillies and he could get away with this. And now that we have him caught, we need to be able to hold him accountable, and the community needs to be a part of that. And taking cameras out of there makes it a double standard. You can't say that they're accountable, yet they're not a part of it.
Um, how are you? I mean, how are you guys doing? Like, I mean, the last time I saw you in court, Olivia was there with your granddaughter. I mean, how are they doing? I'm sure in some ways, like life has to go on. You have some positive things happening too with your granddaughter. Like how's everybody doing?
In some ways, we're in a pause of a movie. Like, you can just go forward, but you just got to keep rewinding because you don't know what you've missed and all these facts. So it's no way to live. It's no way to be. And we try to treat our children different than what we're going through. It's my responsibility to hold this individual accountable for what he's done to my family. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm talking. That's why this is happening right here, right now. It's not because I care about anything other than justice. And that's why I'm pushing for cameras. That's why I'm pushing for this, because I'm a biased man. I'm a biased father.
As I think any parent really would be. I don't think that you wouldn't be biased. You want justice for your daughter. This is all you have left. But the way that he said, like, we're like a paused movie, like, that's almost heart wrenching. Because especially now that he did waive his right to a speedy trial, and they were like geared up and ready to have this done and to see what happened and what the evidence was, and they finally were going to get some answers since they don't seem to have a good relationship with the prosecutors. It's like, he's not a paused movie like that. Like, live your life like that. Like, wow.
So let everybody have a part in this, and then it's a lot easier for us to have a conviction that we all embrace, and then the rest of me and my family don't have to hear the haunting effects of messages saying that, if there would have been cameras in that courtroom, it would have been a different outcome. If we would have had truth and transparency in this case, if it wasn't all about business, then there would have been a different outcome. So you only have one moment to make a statement, and that's the moment we're in right now, and why we're doing this. Shannon told me we had a couple of interviews. I don't keep track of this. He keeps track of this for me, because there is a gap. It's a gap in leadership, and the leadership, I want them to hold everyone accountable and do all this. And when they don't, we're our phones are being ringed. People are calling us because somebody else isn't picking up the phone. That's really why we get involved. I really don't want to be the guy talking to you, to be honest.
Yeah, you sort of become like the spokesperson though. I mean, it's, like you said, it seems like if you don't hold people accountable, it's like in life, things slip away or whatever.
Um,
So I'm gonna pause just because Jen, I know you were talking about like the loss of your son, and I'm very blessed in the fact that I have not lost any of my children. But you guys know that I lost my dad this year, and so there's a lot of things, and I don't want to get too far into it because then I'll start crying. But that's a whole nother thing. But I do get like everything just keeps going, everything keeps going. So like you can't stop everything around you to be sad because you still have to do all the other things that have to be done. It's a very weird feeling. Like he's the closest person to me that I have lost. I've lost my grandparents. I don't have any of them left. But it's very different when it's your own parent, and I couldn't even imagine it being my child. But it's a very weird thing. And then people, there's like a time limit. It's the weirdest thing. Like when you lose somebody, people think like there's a time limit on how long you get to be sad for. So like people are very compassionate and like loving like when it happens, and directly after that, and through like the memorials and the funerals and things like that. But then it's almost like you're not allowed to be sad anymore. It's a very weird place to be in, because you end up dealing with a lot of, like I said, I can't get too far into this because I'll cry, but it's a very weird, you're sad by yourself now because everybody else expects that you should be fine because it's already happened and it's over. But it's like never not sad. So I can't imagine for somebody who lost their children, and I can't imagine living life on pause. And I almost don't know if you would want to, because then you would be sucked so far into the grief that you wouldn't be able to live anymore. So is that like part of like the way to process it, is it's to have all the other things that you still have to live for, so that you can't sit there and be on pause? You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? Yeah, like a 3-day bereavement at work. Yeah, okay, now you just come back to work and it's all good. Everybody's fine. Time heals nothing. You just learn to live with a broken heart. I understand. I can understand that. You learn to live a different way. And I know that there's a lot of embrace the time that you have, because now nobody ever knows when the end is coming and things like that. But I couldn't imagine, like I said, with it being, that's my dad, and I know like he was obviously older and he'd lived a very good life and had a lot of fun in his life, don't get me wrong. But to be your child who doesn't get to have any of that, like his daughter, Steve's daughter, and Kaylee and Maddie and Xana and Ethan, they don't get to graduate from college, even though they were given their certificates and degrees to the family, but they won't get married. They'll never experience having a child of their own. They'll never get to experience growing older. You're like robbed. You're robbed of it. You're robbed of all of that time. And this just like really hit me when he said that. Like, his life is on pause, but he can't let it be, because he has other kids and he has grandkids and he has a wife and he has a job, and he basically gets a 3-day bereavement. I couldn't even say that any better. That's exactly how I feel. Oh, I know, Thistle. Thank you. Okay, bye, Crime Curious. Thank you for being here. I know that you were busy working and listening, but I love you to pieces and I appreciate you so much. Lost her 30 years ago and still like thought you saw somebody. That's why I said I can't get too far into that because then I'll just cry. So I'm gonna go back and just finish. We're gonna finish listening to him, but I feel where he's coming from. I feel it. Yeah, you should just be over it. Just be over it. It's time to be done. And you almost have to be, because the other people still need you to do things and to move on. Because I was a single mom and had 4 other children to provide for, I would crawl to the shower and find the strength just to get by. That's heartbreaking to me, Jen. That's heartbreaking to me. Gosh. Okay. Let's go back to this.
For me, Kaylee would have expected me to be her father. Not 1%, not 10, not 50% of the time. Like I handed off to a judge and a prosecutor to be the father. I'm going to be her father 100% of the time. And when I tell whoever did this, you picked the wrong family, it has to be backed by action. And I'm that action. I'm that person saying, I'm going to be the voice that doesn't go away, even if both sides want that voice to go away.
Makes sense. Is there anything else, Shannon, you think is important that we didn't touch on with the statement, or just that you want to get out there going into the hearing tomorrow?
I mean, there's a lot of procedural things that are going on in the next couple of weeks. I think the family will be there either by Zoom or in person. I'm not sure. We'll figure that out. It's not worth it to really get them in there for 10 or 15 minutes to, like Steve said, for a whole day's worth of stuff. So, but we are, we're looking forward to some of the stuff coming up, the scheduling order, picking new trial dates, the alibi issue, the indictment stuff, all decisions on those things. The court has a lot of stuff in front of him that it has to make some decisions on. We're looking forward to those things. The cameras in the courtroom tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be some oral argument on that tomorrow. I think we'll all be there by Zoom. I'll be there by Zoom. And, it's like Steve said, they become the spokespersons for the families sometimes because that's the job that they've taken on, and they're willing to do it. And, when we do put out statements, we always kind of check in with the families to see if that's something that they're in line with, and we can attach their name to it. So they can get their voice out there and present their views. And so, we thought it was important that everyone knew what the positions of some of the family members of the Cornudo family and the Gonzalez family felt about cameras in the courtroom. And that was the reason for the statement today.
Okay, I'm trying to wipe all my tears away, and then I feel for all of you guys in chat too. Like so many of you, like there's just so much loss. It's heartbreaking. Have to do like a members only stream where we can just sit around and just cry about all of our favorite people who aren't here anymore. Tell stories about them. Okay, so as the judge, even if you didn't want cameras, thank you, Mrs. M, for getting me back on track and out of my emotions. How could you listen to these kids? Oh, never mind, you went right back into it. How could you listen to these kids' parents and not do what they want? Okay, well, so for instance, if you did listen to the parents and say, here you have 4 of them, what if 2 sets of parents want cameras and the other 2 don't? I mean, I think as the judge, I get that like he has to make the decision that's best for the courtroom so that he doesn't end up making a decision that could potentially get Brian a new trial if he's found guilty, or lose the trial for the prosecution and him be found not guilty based on the circus that could ensue, which is kind of his point when he talks about it yesterday, and he's like, they talk about the O.J. Simpson case, which was one of the very first cases that was ever actually televised. And it was a circus. The whole thing was a circus. It was a circus for viewers. It was a circus for the prosecutors. It was just a circus in general. But I mean, you're talking, I was like, 13, 14, so 30 years ago. We've come a long way since then. And somebody mentioned, cameras in the courtroom, and that we've had like accidental showing of jurors, and we've had accidental showing of like autopsy photos when they weren't supposed to be released, or crime scene photos that weren't supposed to be released. But if you picked a stationary spot in a courtroom that only had, like, it had access to the room, and you had a specific spot where evidence was to be presented to the jury that was out of the way of that camera, the camera should not become an issue then, because you would already have that preset for every trial, right? Your witnesses take a witness stand, and then your jury's in a jury box. Those places don't move. And then you could have a specific spot where, evidence that is like that should be presented so that it isn't seen to everybody. And you would already know it. You know where that kind of, what, like a blind spot basically would be in the courtroom. You know what I mean? Oh, sugar magnolia. Oh, gosh. Yeah, the judge can control if it becomes a circus or not. So, okay. How many of you guys actually watched the hearing yesterday? Just give me a 1 or a thumbs up if you did watch it. So I think there's some important parts to listen to. Okay, 2 didn't watch it. Hi, Angel's Live. I lost my high school boyfriend almost 40 years ago. Best friend years ago, both. I think about both of them every day. Aww. I lost one of my best friends to that as well. 16 years ago. Okay, so you guys didn't watch it. So, okay, it'll be some good points for you guys to see then. Make sure that you guys can actually hear it. Let me know you can hear it. Nobody's talking yet, though. That's all.
All
You
right.
can't do both.
Thank you very much. Please be seated.
Okay, so let me know if there's an echo. Otherwise, I can mute if there is.
All right. Well, good afternoon. Let's get on the record, please.
Sometimes I just think I should just download all of these and just drop them in my editor so I can change the volume. Because I have tiny
We
ears.
are now on the record. Stop.
Okay, if there's no echo, I'm not going to mute because then I can talk easier. Otherwise, I have to pause and then come over here to unmute.
I'm moving around. No, I disappeared.
So the camera's over here. Now we're zooming in. We could see anything that was on his screen, right? There's strategy. He put a blocker over it, though, so he says that you can't see it now. Oh, I didn't realize you could see all the Zoom people up there. That's just the attorneys on the Zoom that you can see. Not the families. That's good.
Can you hear Can you hear me? Ms. Beatty, Mr. Nye?
Judge.
Yes. Ms. Massa?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, we are now on the record. This is State of Idaho versus Brian Koberger, CR 2922-2805. Mr. Koberger is in court with counsel, Mr. Logsdon and Ms. Taylor. Ms. Massif is participating or observing from Zoom or through Zoom. The state is represented by Mr. Thompson and Mr. Rudley, who are in the courtroom, and Mr. Nye and Ms. Beatty are observing through Zoom. We also have Ms. Olson and Mr. Carone representing the Media Coalition, and Ms. Towler is the court reporter. So, welcome back, everybody. And I think what we need to do is first address the motion to intervene. So, Ms. Olson, is that for you?
Okay, so her name's Miss Olson, so I got to remember that.
It is, Your Honor.
Thank
So
you.
she's the attorney for
Your Honor,
Media
as
Coalition.
with the motion that proposed interveners filed before the court, we seek to intervene for the limited purpose of opposing the defendant's motion to remove cameras from the courtroom. It's our position that the proposed interveners are the ones who are most affected by that particular motion. And in light of the court having asked us, essentially the same group of interveners, to weigh in on this issue before, we would seek to intervene again just for that limited purpose of opposing removing cameras from the courtroom. Your Honor. And I think it's within the court's discretion to do so.
All right, thank you. So I see this, oh, don't go away. No, I want to talk to you about this because I think that, well, I'm not sure, okay, that this is the same intervention as we had the first round. I think this is a different situation.
I'm gonna try to speed it up just a little bit. If it gets too fast, let me
Some of your
know.
clients kind of jump the gun a little bit, thinking that they are interventions or interveners. And I mean, you know, this was filed on August 30, 2023, so we really haven't had a chance to talk about this. And I haven't addressed it in court, as you know. So, and we already started with the merits, okay, before I have approved the intervention. So my issue first is really on the standing, because the first round had something to do with Constitution, state Constitution, U.S. Constitution, and I'm not sure that applies in this situation under Rule 45. And I think that the Supreme Court, the Idaho Supreme Court, sort of addressed that a little bit.
You can tell at the beginning of this she's very nervous, but by the end she gets a lot.
Motion for mandamus. So you want to address that, the standing issue first?
Sure, Your Honor. With respect to the Supreme Court's decision, when we filed the petition in front of it back in January, I think they said that the media has the right and should be able to intervene when there are issues related to First Amendment issues and access issues. And Your Honor, I would submit that we understand that ICAR 45 is absolutely the governing piece of law on this. But when we talk about press access to the proceedings, cameras in the courtroom, I would submit, Your Honor, are part of that press access to the proceedings, because it's the cameras in the courtroom, it's the ability to have pool coverage, it's the ability to have still photographers that provide access to a much greater number of people than even having just the reporters who are going to write things down and post stories after the fact. It allows sort of that broader access that allows people to see sort of firsthand what is.
Okay, I'm going to pause it here just to kind of explain what's happening. So she's basically saying that having cameras in the courtroom is a First Amendment right. And by not having the cameras in the courtroom, that the Media Coalition almost believes that they're now being like stifled and that their First Amendment right could be in violation. But the judge is not ordering that no reporters can be in the courtroom. So technically, using the First Amendment right is not always going to, it's not necessarily going to work in this circumstance because they're not being kept away from the proceedings. They're allowed to be in there and they're allowed to witness it. So this is going to be tough. Hey, Richie. So she's not going to win it on the point of the First Amendment, in my opinion.
Is happening, and we think that's an important First Amendment right, Your Honor.
That's a First Amendment right to have cameras in the courtroom?
No, Your Honor. Press access is absolutely, and public access, I think, is absolutely a First Amendment right.
So the press and the public have full access to this courtroom?
I agree, Your Honor. Having cameras in the courtroom, having still photographers, having live coverage allows that public access to be much greater than it is through just having people having to travel to Moscow, having to come into this particular courtroom, Your Honor.
That has no implication for the United States Constitution or the Idaho Constitution. I
Your
just want
Honor,
to clear this issue up in terms of what the standing is.
Your Honor, I respectfully disagree, because I think that the First Amendment and the Idaho Constitution both contemplate this right broad access piece of it. And I think there's an argument to be made that having cameras in the courtroom takes a step from that first right of public access and makes it more open to additional people. So I think there is a First Amendment interest there. It's certainly not as strong as, for example, if the proceedings, there was some sort of order to close the proceedings or no journalist could come into the courtroom. I think that would be a far more significant problem, Your Honor. But I think in terms of First Amendment interests, the broader, and maybe because there's some access already, the First Amendment interests are smaller, but I think there is a First Amendment interest in having broad access to the court proceedings. I think it's also in the interest of the court, Your Honor, to make that access as broad as possible, because we're unfortunately in a day and age that for some people, if you can't see it, you don't believe it, or if you can't see it, it didn't happen. And there's
Now she's got a point there, because if you didn't see it, it didn't happen. We are in a day and age of we want receipts to be able to know that this is actually how it went down. We don't want to trust the Twitter or I think you still tweet, even though it's called X now or whatever. We don't want to trust that those reporters are telling us everything that happened. And we know that not always are they, because they have to type really freaking fast. So sometimes we have to watch multiple Twitter feeds to be able to catch all the things. And then shit becomes convoluted. Let's be real.
an increasing need for people to see for themselves precisely what's going on inside the courtrooms of this country.
Are there cases that support that?
That support cameras in the courtroom?
No, and that is based in constitutional law.
Well, Your Honor, I would say that the line of cases that we both cited, Estes in Chandler versus Florida, says that there's no prohibition on having cameras not in the courtroom. There is not a case that says flat out, under the First Amendment, there is a right to have cameras in the courtroom.
Okay. Well, I understand that.
I do think it should be part of the First Amendment right,
Because I was looking at
but it's
back
not
at
necessarily.
this decision that the Idaho Supreme Court made. And it does say that petitioners, meaning you in that case, or your clients, I should say, are correct that Idaho's rules of criminal procedure do not provide a specific mechanism for third parties to intervene in a criminal case. Likewise, the federal rules of criminal procedure do not provide for a motion to intervene in a criminal case brought by the United States. Of course, you know that well. It says, however, both state and federal courts often permit the media to intervene in criminal cases on a limited basis, or at least file a motion as interested parties in the defense of public access and free speech, including in Idaho. So I think, we're on the same page on that, and I understand that. This idea of intervention specifically versus as an interested party, because I know in the Daybell case, the media was characterized as interested parties. I'm just not sure that we get all the way to intervention, because historically anyway, my understanding of the rules is intervention means you are really a party in a case. And that gives you significantly more access. I'm thinking about this more as an amicus brief or presentation, because I'm willing to hear it. I'm willing to read the briefs. I think that's important, but I'm not necessarily comfortable going to call it all, or the media coalition to be interventions. So do you see a difference there?
Your Honor, I understand the difference, the distinction that the court is making. That's why our motion to intervene has always been for a limited purpose. And full candor, this was a difficult one to sort of try to solve procedurally. It's been my experience in Idaho state courts that rules and cases are read very literally, and we couldn't find a rule, so that's why we went to the Supreme Court to begin with, because there wasn't a rule that allowed us to do that. And I think for purposes of the proposed interveners and media coalition in this case, that being allowed to present its argument to this court, whether it's as interveners for a very limited purpose, and that's without a rule, that's typically, I think, how you would get into a case. I was trying to liken this to like, motion to quash a third-party subpoena, but there's a rule that allows you to come in and challenge that. So when there was no rule, we're trying to identify, well, what is the procedural mechanism? And intervention is typically, certainly there's a civil analog, and there's a way to, that's just the analog that we requested from the court before. We think it's consistent with what the Supreme Court said in the case that it decided in April. But if the court does not want to give us intervention status, I remember we had that discussion a little bit last time, and we asked you to sign the order, so in part that would be precedent for us to do this, and you did.
Yeah,
But
everybody agreed, so I signed it. But now I've thought more deeply about it.
Yeah, and I think, Your Honor, if the court would rather the media coalition appear as interested parties, I mean, that would also serve the media coalition, and we'd be happy to present argument just as interested parties so that there is some entity speaking for continued access in the courtroom.
Okay, I could even label you as media coalition.
That would be fine with us, I think, Your Honor.
Okay, great. And there is some language, and I don't need to read it now, page 14 and page 15, that kind of caution going too far with intervention, or what we call it. And I'm trying to clarify this a little bit. I think the Supreme Court is trying to clarify it a bit.
Richie, so we were talking about that a little bit ago too. What if they had like a stationary camera that would focus on the entire courtroom, but there was like almost like a known blind spot that, you know, it would not actually encompass the jury. So it wouldn't be a moving camera. It would be stationary, but better quality than like what we saw with like Stout case.
To the sources of information that this trial and this proceeding are really all about. And so that's, I think, the media doesn't want to have to, they don't have to pay me, Mr. Courtroom, every time they want to make an argument in court, and we don't think that would be appropriate either. It's just those issues that really fundamentally affect what sources of information they can access in the process of reporting on this floor, Your Honor.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Now these get interesting because then now they both get to talk.
Mr. Dudley?
Yeah. Well, Your Honor, the state has no objection to either classification of the media for the limited purpose of helping the court decide this issue.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dudley. Okay, Mr. Logsdon?
We're not going to object, obviously, to hearing from the media, and I certainly understand the court's concern. That's interesting, but so long as I guess I'm not finding things willy-nilly and making discovery requests, I'm not terribly concerned about how they're doing it.
Great, thank you. Maybe I'm just being a little nerdy about it.
Okay, so basically what they're saying is that they don't want the media to have like a vested say-so in the court proceedings. Like he doesn't want the media to be able to, like they're not in court with the media. And so like having them come and testify and do all these things, it would be ridiculous in his opinion, in the defense attorney's opinion.
Or, you know, the rules and, you know, even the history in Idaho, and also relying on some of the language in the petition for writ of mandamus that the Supreme Court issued on, this was April 24, 2023. So I really think it's more appropriate, and I looked into this to some level, and to sort of an amicus brief, but not considered as a party, as an intervention, but sort of a presentation or brief addressing particular issues of interest that are important. No question about that. So that's how I'm going to view this, and I'm going to deny the motion to be for intervention. But however, I will certainly consider the arguments, consider the briefs, and I will consider that while balancing the concerns of both the state and the defendant. So let's move then to the arguments on cameras in the courtroom, and we'll start with Mr. Koberger's team, and I believe that's also going to be you, Mr. Logsdon.
Yeah, this is when it gets like a lot more interesting because now they're doing their own arguments for their motions.
Moreover, someone argued it a few months back. I think our position is that the court, I think, understands our concerns about turning this into a spectacle, the way that may prejudice the public against our client, the way in which it dehumanizes people constitutionally, and turn this into more of a TV show drama than a court procedures with it. And I think everyone understands that. Our concern is that since that time, it doesn't seem like much has changed. The media's argument, as far as I can understand it, is that the cameramen that are here are doing their jobs well. There are editors for various organizations or people on social media that take those images and then do things with them that we may not like. And that if the court removes the cameras, presumably those people will just use older images and we won't have affected things with all required. Our position is that removal of the cameras does two things. One, it stops new images. And I don't think we can underestimate the power of novelty when it comes to what the public is interested in. Use of old pictures becomes so fun. There's a reason why we live in a world of memes where people are constantly trading around pictures. They quickly get old. There's a new one. It seems like every day there's hundreds of brand new images. So the concept of removing this sort of almost sideshow from what's being put out there, we think would be an important way to kind of take away the sensationalization of this case and just kind of reduce it to hopefully the words on the page. And if they're using old photos, etc., you can't stop them. We just don't see that as being as big an issue as a constant stream of new images that are being manipulated, etc., to make viral content, what have you. Our secondary point is just that we don't want to.
Okay, so let's talk about his first point. His first point, and we talked about this earlier too, was that he doesn't want people from the internet to be able to make new memes about Brian Kohberger. Oh, but yet they can still take old images and make new memes. But he doesn't want them to have new images to make new memes. That's his argument in court, is that there are people on social media that make memes. And he says it's so serious, like you almost take him very seriously. But if you think about it in the perspective of how are the memes affecting the court, how, once again, like I said this earlier, Brian's fly being down does not equate to guilty. People don't look at that and go, oh my gosh, his fly's down in court. He must have done it. It doesn't make any sense to me. All right, so I think memes is a ridiculous argument to have, but like I said, he says it so seriously that people are like, oh my gosh, yeah, you know what? He's right. People will have new images of Brian Kohberger if there's cameras. But it's like, who cares? They have images of Brian Kohberger. It's done. Okay, we're gonna go to his second point now and see how serious this one is.
The cameras are only sitting because it looks like where I'm sitting and my laptop. I got one of these fun screens so that if you look at it from the side, you can't quite see what I'm doing anymore. But it's a distraction for us because we feel like essentially there's a camera right over our shoulder, and we certainly understand they're not zooming in on what we're doing. But I think we've already seen that once they make these images and they pass them around, I mean, they're all make cameras, and somebody else could presumably do that. And so that causes us quite a bit of concern as well. So if the court decides that removal of the camera isn't necessary, we do have, I think, a bigger concern just making sure that they're set someplace where we don't have images that are really just what we're working on.
Okay, so his second point, we talked about this earlier too. His second point was that the screens from their desk, either their laptops or the paperwork that they have at their desk, can be seen by the cameras. I want you guys to find me one court hearing that the cameraman was able to zoom in and get the footage of paperwork on the desk of the defense team, that this would even have any precedence at all in this courtroom. That it doesn't make any sense. It's not happened here for sure, but that's their concern. And then they feel like they can't provide the best defense possible for their client because they feel like they have a camera looking over their shoulder. But wait, what he actually wants them to do would not change the fact that somebody can zoom in, because hello, it's technology, can zoom in on the exact same thing that he's saying the camera can do from the courtroom. You have to, because it's a dumb argument to me. I'm like, that's the same. People who know technology can do it either way. Watch.
During the case. I don't really have much else to report. Let's go to questions.
Well, I have one comment or question, because in one of your briefs, I know I've had two sequences of briefs because we had this earlier, but this was a newer one where you were saying, well, this is a quote, where were only the kind of cameras used to show the workings on the House floor on C-SPAN.
I may be showing my age, but they might have better cameras now, but when I was
Well, I'm sure.
younger, it was just this camera like way over there.
Yeah, well, that's the point. I mean, I made me think about that, is just plant a camera up there. If everybody can just see what's happening from the back of the courtroom, maybe that can satisfy everybody just partly.
Okay, so the answer is putting the camera up in the back of the courtroom. If the camera's in the back of the courtroom, if the camera is directly in the back of the courtroom and it can see straight ahead, what is to say that the people who are good with technology aren't able to zoom in and see what's on the computers? Does that make sense? Yes, that's exactly what I was asking, Aaron, but I wanted to know if you could actually see anything that was said or see anything that was on it. Hey, Tactical Dragonfly. Hi, True Crime Crazy. The Dream Team 2.0. Yeah, they were. I'm like, come on. Like, this is your two things? That's not going to help you.
That was kind of my idea. That was my suggestion. And I feel like somebody's going to throw it to me anyway. But that, I thought, might be a way to kind of give a little and just kind of protect what we're trying to protect.
I've never seen anything very sensational on C-SPAN.
And that's literally what I was thinking.
Yeah,
Although Newt Gingrich got pretty close.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are we going to Mr. Rudley now? Ms. Olson gets at the end of that, and then I'll go back to the parties. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. As we previously discussed, the decision of whether to allow cameras in the courtroom is discretionary for the court. The state outlined our concerns with allowing cameras in our responsive brief and in our June 6th briefing. Primarily, those concerns are preserving the right to a fair and impartial trial for all the parties, protecting sensitive witnesses who will testify at hearings and trial in this case, and safeguarding evidence, which is the graphic nature. We agree that the media plays an important role in the court process, and we appreciate in their briefing the measures that they identify to address some of our concerns for protecting vulnerable witnesses or evidence which is of a graphic nature that they've done in previous cases. However, our contention is that the safest way and best way to address all of these concerns is to prohibit cameras in the courtroom, or in the alternative, prohibit cameras when sensitive or vulnerable witnesses are testifying or there's evidence being viewed that's of a graphic nature. And I'll stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I think.
Okay, so before we go back to her again, because she does get more confident as she talks now, but for him, at least the prosecution did it as an entirety for like the entire trial. Like their concerns about the cameras was, to make sure that the witnesses that are testifying are okay. Which, once again, the witnesses don't want to be there. Most of them don't want to be there. The ones that they're talking about and calling vulnerable don't want to testify anyway. Most don't. So putting them on camera, this is why I'm saying if it's not a person standing there that's drawing attention to it, most people wouldn't even pay attention to the fact that there is a camera. I think having a guy there who's moving a camera around and zooming in and doing all these different things, I think that's probably the only point I would agree with on that. So just don't have a camera mom. Look at him I'm reading Rainbow Mom's comment and I call it don't have a camera mom in there. It'd be better. Yep, problem solved.
For where we were 3 months ago with respect to what the rule the court has to consider in terms of whether to continue to allow cameras in the courtroom, and that's Idaho Court Administrative Rule 45. And I think, Your Honor, when we read through that rule, it really addresses the concerns that the parties have raised to this court about what the court's discretion is, about what it can, how it can direct cameras where they're to be in the courtroom, all of those things, that it can restrict camera coverage when there is a particularly sensitive witness. And I think, Your Honor, what you saw in the declarations that we submitted, the declaration of Rebecca Boone and the declaration of Grace Long, is that these are journalists who are experienced in covering court cases, and in covering court cases where there are cameras, both video cameras and still cameras, and following the court's admonitions about what can be covered and what can't be done. And I think particularly, Your Honor, with respect to Ms. Boone's declaration, and Ms. Boone, who is a graduate of the University of Idaho's journalism program, who continues to be an advisor to that program, and who certainly would have not only the best interests of her employer at heart, but she understands this community. I mean, her experience has been that when you have these pool cameras, both still and video, and when you allow camera coverage to the extent that you can, it better serves the public, and it helps ameliorate the kind of media scrum is probably not the term that my clients would want to use, but the sort of that big gaggle of journalists who accumulate outside of the courtroom when there is no opportunity to be inside the courtroom, when you don't get the opportunity to have that full procedure. So I think the court can use Idaho Court Administrative Rule 45 and craft a solution that continues to allow the journalists who are working hard to cover this case to be able to do so in a way that both allows them to provide really a firsthand account of what's going on. And again, Your Honor, I don't think we can underestimate the importance of that firsthand video account as well, because we're just in this day and age where people are used to seeing things firsthand. There's cameras everywhere. To be able to really have great confidence in the proceedings, I think it's important for the court to allow some sort of in-courtroom camera coverage of the proceedings. People are going to need to be able to see firsthand for themselves how the evidence is presented, how they want to see the rulings in the courtroom. They can learn a lot from that in a way that they can't learn from people who then are in the courtroom and they're going to set up outside and they talk about what happened. And so I think, that's a good reason to continue the policy that the court has had. And then I think, Your Honor, with all due respect to Mr. Lawson, I just don't think there are the violations of the things that the court said at the outset of the June 27th hearing. Now, I was not here. I read about it in the attachment that Mr. Lawson made to his initial, or the reference Mr. Lawson made to his initial pleading in this round. And my reading of that, Your Honor, and actually the Fox News story, is that the court said, and of course the court said it, so I'm sure the court's memory of it is the best, but that the court made a comment that the court should, for some kind of hard time.
Back up. That's one of the things I said.
Yeah, okay.
It was just focusing
Right.
too much in particular areas, and so I was just cautioning the media to step back, and they.
So this is when they're talking about the fact that, to her point, that the media itself was under the impression that they couldn't just solely focus on him. Not that they could never focus on him, which is one of the things that I've talked about forever. When in that last hearing, when they said that the cameraman was focusing on Brian Kohberger, and I was like, but he really didn't. He did at times, but he also focused on the prosecutor. He focused on the witnesses. He focused on the judge. He focused at some point on everybody. And then they were like, well, he's not allowed to do it at all. The defense team was like, they're not allowed to do that at all. And it's like, that's not what the order said.
They have pushed the envelope.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
Okay. Well,
This is when he gets into what the media has done, and basically that he thinks that they are making a spectacle out of things, which I just don't know if I necessarily agree with, that having the camera in the courtroom is what's causing the spectacle. I agree that there is a spectacle on mainstream media and even on YouTube at times when it comes to this case and cases like it, but I'm not sure that the two go hand in hand. Once again, does one equate to the other? I'm not sold that it does.
And I think that what the media heard on that occasion, reported by Fox News, was that the cameras needed to show a wide shot of the courtroom and not focus strictly on Mr. Kohberger. And I think that phrase focus strictly on Mr. Kohberger has really been interpreted to mean you can still take pictures of Mr. Kohberger, but he's not the only one you should be taking pictures of. And there's certainly a limitation in print media or the online stories, and you don't always have video. So what I've seen, and I think that the examples we provided to the court, where there were pictures of lots of different participants in the courtroom, and they're trying to show everybody. And if the direction from the court is instead, look, there can be no single pictures of Mr. Kohberger, the challenge is, and I think even Rule 45 says this, there are some limits on how much the court can tell the editors and everything, because they're not here in the court. And some of those people may still choose to crop out just a little bit of that picture. And Your Honor, I don't think that runs afoul of what the court has in mind. I think that what you've seen is an attempt by the journalists who are here in court to show a wider shot. And then as we wrote in our brief, from that courtroom angle there, I mean, it's I think I said it's not a football field. It's hard to get sort of the full perspective when the camera is sitting right there. If there's a way to station the camera at the very back of the courtroom, maybe, but those are also the things, like you saw this in Ms. Wong's declaration, the court TV people have a lot of experience working with courts and trying to find the best way to both serve the purpose of having cameras in the courtroom and being able to present to the public the proceedings as they occur, and also not be obtrusive, not cause noise, not run afoul of the court's admonition to focus in on any particular individual. So they are more than willing to work with the court to do that. They just ask that he continue to be in the courtroom, because I think when we look at the full media coverage, they haven't run afoul of that admonition. There are certainly still individual pictures of Mr. Coburger, but that will continue to happen regardless, Your Honor.
Well, sure. I mean, in some ways, it kind of misses the point, because it's the sensationalist sort of spectacle that is concerning. And from one of your, the declaration from
Cray. So she is a lawyer for what is now called the Media Coalition, that they've all kind of joined together in, not all, but a lot of them have joined together in fighting the fact that they want cameras in the courtroom. This is where I'm at. And somebody mentioned it earlier too, is like, what's the cost of even just having this hearing? Well, it's obviously absurd. It's a huge cost to have all of these people have to be here for this. But if this was already just a mandatory thing, it wouldn't even be a question. We spend so much time on different trials where they're fighting to keep cameras out of the courtroom. I just don't get it. It bothers me. Hi, allegedly innocent. Good to see you. Hey, Annie Ruler.
TV Court TV. I looked through all the cases that they filmed, and some of those you could question whether that was a very dignified way to have a trial. And the classic is O.J. Simpson. So they're saying, oh, this is great. This is great work we did, filming this. But if anybody watched any part of that case, it was a circus. So that is what.
And once again, we're talking about a case that's 30 years ago. Look at the cases that have been more recently covered. And I'm telling you right now, it's not the same. And obviously it is. This is why I'm saying, if you have a stationary camera that is there, that is not just some crappy WebEx version of whatever, it's an actual like high definition camera that you know where it is, you have the ability to set things up accordingly. And you have the ability, it being your courtroom, to figure out where the camera should go. And that's true too, allegedly. And that's a whole nother ball game right there, is trying to get into the O.J. Simpson case, because it was. And not to mention, you're talking about it was O.J. Simpson. Brian Koberger is not O.J. Simpson. Let's be real. Like, O.J. Simpson had massive amounts of fans that, regardless of whatever evidence there was, it was going to be a spectacle, either in the courtroom or outside of it, because that's just what was going to happen. So, who was it? Tactical Dragonfly. These are, when you ask like if there was anything good, to me, all of it's crap. The closest thing to good would be the prosecutors just talking about how the witnesses aren't going to be as comfortable because they have a camera in their face. That's about the only thing. Other than that, it is all excuses. These things don't go hand in hand. The spectacle that the media creates does not equate to the cameras in the courtroom. That is asinine to me. I think that the spectacles, and I know I'm probably going to be in a majority here, or a minority here, the spectacle comes from the fact that there isn't transparency. We don't know all the things that happened. As I say this constantly, as human beings, when we don't have all of the inner workings or all of the pieces to the puzzle, our brains have to like make up what we think that missing piece looks like or what it involves. And that's where speculation comes from, and the speculation causes spectacles. That's how I am. And yes, mainstream media, stupid people on Twitter or wherever are going to make memes and they're going to do whatever. That's going to happen regardless. That's allegedly innocent. I said that earlier too. I'm like, they don't want to be there to begin with. The ones that they're considering the vulnerable witnesses, they don't want to be there to begin with. They're going to be a wreck regardless. Imagine. This is what I was saying earlier. Imagine if those people are leaving the courtroom and now you have 40 cameras that are in your face because they want a good shot of you. And yeah, there's still going to be cameras outside, but it's all just excuses. Nothing I've not heard anything with a good legal standing saying this is why we should or why we shouldn't have cameras. So then I go to why would we not? Why would we stop them? What Steve Gonsalves said. What are you hiding? If it's just the truth that's coming out, then let it come out.
One of the concerns in this particular case, we have a lot of interest, and we have a lot of people that you can't control, that your clients can't control, and they are putting out stuff that is harmful. It's harmful for the case, for this case, for the.
Okay, I have to stop it again. I'm sorry, but yes, tactical. That's how I feel, and I'm really fired up about it because I feel like we continue to set these precedences, and I said this at the beginning of the live, so those of you who weren't here at that point, the state of Idaho is hiding trials. If he hides this trial, we've already had Lori Vallows hidden. I guarantee we're going to have Chad Daybell's hidden, and then we have this trial hidden. That's an issue, and I don't live in Idaho, so I mean, obviously, I don't have a lot of say so, but why are the courtrooms in Idaho not wanting to show the world what's happening in these high profile cases in their state? Wouldn't they want the world to see that Idaho, if you create these or you commit these crimes in Idaho, you will get justice, and this is why, and this is what's going to happen to you. So don't commit crimes in our state. Yeah, I agree. Tactical, yeah, I say that too. That's another thing I say. Once we're at trial, it doesn't matter. Having a camera in there isn't going to do anything to the jury. Think about it. The cases with cameras had none of this nonsense. It has been the cases they tried to hide that look absurd. I could not agree more. And the fact that they keep throwing back to O.J. Simpson, one of the very first trials that was ever televised, it's just not, in my opinion, it's not a good example. It's not, it doesn't, they're not the same. Brian Kohberger and O.J. Simpson are not the same. Yes, social media is different, but still. Hi, Muffy. It reflects badly on the two colleges. Well, so then this goes to Steve Gonsalves' comments too, is how much political shit is happening in the background that is causing now the prosecutor, who didn't care if there was cameras, to now say they don't want cameras. What kind of politics is going on to save a college town or whatever you want to call it? I don't know. You'd want your judicial system to be forthright and forthcoming and honest, and you want to see it happen. I do.
Process to have a dignified trial. That's my worry, and that's my job. So when I have been talking to the media, just kind of, can you back off a little bit? Because I've been very accommodating, and I just start feeling like, can I really trust them to do the right thing? And it's not necessarily the camera people, okay? It's where that film goes and how it is manipulated and how people are, commentators, how they talk about it, okay? How they explain it. And a lot of times it is not very accurate. And I don't watch all this stuff, but I've watched enough to see that how misinformation is pumped out there along with the images and with the films. So
a lot of the misinformation and a lot of the spectacle he talks about sitting up there is due to not understanding the information being presented, which would be better with transparency so people can actually learn. And two, it's going to be created because of the lack of information that they're willing to give to the public. So he's saying like he's been accommodating. Yes, he has. He's been very accommodating to having a cameraman in the courtroom. But why would everybody be punished for what one person on Twitter decides to make a meme? So the entire public should be punished because the internet This isn't a case against the internet. This is my point. I don't know. We don't know yet, Muffy. They haven't decided, unless they decided while I was live, which I doubt because the court's closed. Yeah, it gets spread when you hide things. Totally agree, Chief. But look at how much education happened in the Johnny Depp trial. The attorneys taught us so much, and a targeted man was revealed to be innocent. Yes. So they try to say that, like, during the OJ case, which this once again, we could go so far into OJ, it would be a mess. But later on in this hearing, they try to say that basically they think that OJ was acquitted because of the circus that was created on camera. So, like, he got acquitted because of that. I don't know how. Then you're taking the responsibility and the trust that we have in our jury system and in the jurors that are being chosen, and saying that they couldn't make a good decision because of the media. That doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't align.
How do we deal with that? It's not the same media now than it was 10 years ago with social media, for example. I can't control that. You can't control that. I understand that. I mean, it's going to happen anyway. All I wish is that everybody had a little more respect for what we're doing here, because it's not entertainment. It's a tragic issue, okay? And that is what is disturbing to me personally.
Your Honor, if I may, I understand all of that completely. I have been in Mr. Thompson's shoes in a very disturbing, heinous murder case with a lot of the pressures that go with that, and dealing with victims and victims' families. And that is a very challenging position to be in. And being able to, I think, Your Honor, having worked in the criminal justice system far longer than I've been in the position I'm in now, I think that in this media day and age, having cameras in the courtroom so that people can see what the proceedings are all about. And so there's at least a source out there that says, this is what happened. And if there was not that, that makes it much easier for the people who are going to disseminate disinformation, for the talking heads who aren't going to be respectful of the process to do that. Because then there's none of the actual footage from the trial that responsible media outlets and responsible consumers of information and responsible online people will be able to get access to. I think, Your Honor, the answer is not less sunshine, it's more. I don't think we can afford to abandon to whoever the guy on X or Twitter was that cut out a portion of one photograph of Mr. Koberger and then was glad that he got some call out by Mr. Logsdon in his motion. I don't think we can afford to abandon how this case is portrayed visually to those individuals. And instead, frankly, of having pictures in court, then you just get all the pictures of people going, in and out of the courthouse. But you're going to have the same content, Your Honor. The way to battle this information is to provide the accurate information, and the accurate information is what happens inside this courtroom, with the cameras positioned in a place that provides the best, most overall perspective of the courtroom. And if there are sensitive witnesses, then the court can give direction and the media will follow that you don't get to film those witnesses. The rule provides you don't get to film the jurors. There are all sorts of sensitivities built into ICAR 45, and the media would ask the court to use those tools rather than saying, no, we are not going to allow cameras in the courtroom. We're not going to allow video in the courtroom, because then you just don't get that accurate picture that they can portray out there. And Your Honor, I do think, with all due respect to the comments that Mr. Logsdon made in his reply brief, the members of the media who are in this coalition, who I think are covering this trial, who I think includes the news editor from the Daily Argonaut from the student at the university, they are here because they think it's an important public service to cover the proceedings in a criminal matter of such importance to the university, to this community, and I think, Your Honor, really to the state of Idaho. As I recall from my comments when we were here in June, I mean, this case has affected people all over the state. There are young people who were students at the university that I know who were affected by what happened. And having some ability to understand the proceedings and to get the closure will be important to them, Your Honor. And I think this court, this court accomplishes much more by allowing the cameras to stay in the courtroom and giving them firm guidance and working with them than it does to send them outside. If you want to see spectacle, I mean, see the 40 cameras set up outside of the courtroom, and every time someone walks out, they sort of get ganged up on.
I told you she gets a little bit more feisty later on. She definitely finds her groove. She was very nervous at the beginning, but she's not wrong. The whole thing about it is that it's going to create a spectacle, because the people who actually want the truth and the people who will report on the truth won't be able to because they can't actually see the truth. The only information they are able to see is the nonsense, is the spectacle. So her wrap up is good.
That I think you're right, is spectacle. With respect to the O.J. Simpson trial, which is like one of the first sort of highly covered ones, I think the point of that one was too, like, look, you can have camera coverage of these cases, and the person, it's still possible for them to get acquittal. It's not prejudicial in terms of guilt or innocence. Look, you can have cameras coverage of these cases, but I think the person, everybody learned a lot from that trial. It certainly didn't reflect well on poor Judge Ito. It didn't really reflect very well on the prosecutors. There are things that may have been playing to the camera because of that, but I think we all learned a lot from that, Your Honor, and hopefully, then changes can be made about where the cameras can be positioned. And there's part of it's the responsibility of the participants in the courtroom, and not to adjust their behavior for the cameras. I don't see, Bill Thompson, the late Cobb County prosecutor, of years and years and years, adjusting his approach, or Mr. Nye, or the other two are working on this because there are cameras in the courtroom. I know Ms. Nassoff, I don't know these lawyers as well. I know Ms. Nassoff is not going to adjust her performance in the courtroom. She's going to do everything she can for that client, and I trust these lawyers will too, regardless of whether there are cameras in the courtroom. And I think, Your Honor, the public and this community will be best served by having those cameras in the courtroom and making sure that the guidelines that the court wants to put in place are there, and that there's this firm understanding by members of the media that they will follow that. And I just think it's just not true that that the people who we represent and the people who are in this courtroom today are here to make a spectacle of this proceeding. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. So I just I hope I sent out a message to the media and everybody else that please have patience, be respectful, and be decent.
So right there, I think that this is like, he's actually saying, this is your last warning. And I hope I sent out a message like to be respectful. I think that this is like his last, if you can't take my hint during this hearing, then I'm going to remove the cameras. This is how I felt like it ended. You guys tell me what you think.
That's what I think. So, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, any response to any of that, Mr. Logsdon? You don't have to.
I'm really sure where to go with that one, but obviously nobody's talking about throwing the media out of the courtroom or making the case so dark. I wouldn't want that. After all, I think the public definitely plays a very big role in making sure that we all do our jobs right. We're just talking about the images that are coming out of this. It sounds like court. Here's where we're coming from. I don't think I have a whole lot more after that. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Redley?
Nothing further.
Okay. Well, thank you all. I think it's a very interesting, really kind of powerful issue that is a benefit and also potentially a harm. And that there's a lot of balancing that will go into this consideration.
It's going to come out that
of course, I
it's pretty obvious.
am especially sensitive to the parties of the case. I saw Mr. Thompson kind of smile a little bit about, there were a lot of these cases where they were sensationalized and heavily filmed and talked about. The defendants were acquitted, and so therefore that proves that they got a fair trial. Well, we want trials to be balanced, so therefore that proves and that they got a fair trial. I was reading your mind. Well, we want trials. It can tilt. It can tilt a case one way or the other. If the media is trying the case in media. And we don't want that because that's not based on evidence. That's not based on the rules of the court. And it can get out of control. And I think some of those cases that were cited in the declaration, court TV, personnel, are kind of seeing it one way. And they have a certain job to do. I understand that. But some of those cases, in my opinion, kind of spun out of control. And that based on the media and how heavily it was covered. So that's my worry. I'm going to figure it out and try to do the right thing for both the public and the parties and the rule of law. So with that, we're adjourned.
adjourned. Thank you all.
Okay, so yeah, I blocked. They won't stop. That's just how trolls are. So it's best to just ignore. I delete them, and then just it is what it is. Don't let it deter you. But so there's an article that I wanted to talk about before we wrap up. Why can't I get it over here? Stop acting like that. From the Daily Mail. You guys know there's a special coming out on Saturday. That's going to have some new interviews, new information. I think most of us will be watching it at least at some point. Yeah, C-Dub, I know. I'm hoping that he ultimately makes the right call. I mean, the right call, in my opinion, and obviously in the opinion of the Gonsalves family, and most of us. Okay, so this article headlines, this is Daily Mail, so once again, you guys take it for what you want. Parents of the University of Idaho student Kaylee Gonsalves claim they have evidence that she tried to escape killer but was trapped and brutally murdered. Steve Gonsalves says his daughter Kaylee was trapped between the wall and her friend's dead body on the night of the murders. Her mother believes that the attacker had only planned to kill one student, but his plan went awry. This right here, reading between the lines, says Maddie was first. Because she's trapped between one of her dead friends and a wall. The parents of Kaylee Gonsalves claim that their daughter was trapped by the body of her best friend as she tried to escape the killer. Steve Gonsalves said that his daughter was stuck in her bedroom because of the property layout in Moscow, Idaho, on the night she was murdered. Kaylee, 21, was killed alongside her best friend, Maddie Mogan, 21, housemate Xana Kernodle, and Kernodle's boyfriend, Ethan Chapin. Both Kaylee and Maddie were sleeping in the same bed the night of the murders, with Kaylee's parents claiming they have evidence showing that she tried to get out of the situation before being killed. This is interesting to me because, in my personal opinion, I did not believe, and obviously my mind can be changed, that they were actually sleeping in the same bed. I've always thought that Kaylee got out of her bed to go and find out what the ruckus was out in the hallway and in Maddie's room, and that's where she ended up because she went in to see what was going on after Murphy got upset. So obviously I could be wrong. I don't have all the information. How can they do TV specials when there's a gag order? So there's technically not a gag order on their information. The families can speak all they want to. It's the attorneys that are involved in the case that actually have a gag order, and the players. So she tried to get out of the situation before being killed. Brian Koberger, 28, has been charged with the murders of the 4 University of Idaho students, with Steve revealing that Maddie was likely the first to die, which I do believe. He believes that Kaylee was stuck between her friend's body and the wall before the assailant attacked her, citing the coroner's report. I think this is just pictures. I don't think it actually has any audio. So the special is going to be on 48 hours. Speaking to CBS's Peter Van Sant, he said there's evidence to show that she awakened and tried to get out of the situation, but she was assaulted and stabbed. The bed was up against the wall, the headboard was touching the wall, and the left side of the bed was touching the wall. And we believe that Maddie was on the outside and Kaylee was on the inside. The way the bed was set up, Kaylee was trapped. Kaylee's mother, Christy, said that she thinks the killer's plan went awry, adding that he intended to kill 1 and killed 4, which I also believe. I do believe that he went there to kill Maddie. Or he didn't care who else he was going to kill. But I think that, my opinion, if there's a target, if it's a singular target, it was Maddie. Kaylee's mother, Christy, said that she thinks the killer's plan went awry, adding that he intended to kill 1 and killed 4. Their comments come after Koberger waived his right to a speedy trial, pushing back the court case until at least next year. He refused to answer when asked for his plea, so the judge entered a not guilty indication on his behalf. His legal team denies the allegations against him. Family members of the victim spoke with Van Sant in the night of the Idaho murders, with Xana's sister Jasmine opening up for the first time. I don't know why the murders happened, she said. I wish we knew. They were, all four of them were just such great people and made such an impact on the lives around them. And there's the floor plan. And Xana's father said that he believes his daughter fought back against her killer, adding, "It's upsetting to think about." The Gonsalves family believes that alleged killer Koberger made several scouting trips to the property on Kings Road. He had to know when people were coming and people were going. A police affidavit states that Koberger visited the property on at least 12 occasions prior to the killings. The Gonsalves family have been undertaking their own investigation and were regularly speaking out before a gag order was put in place. The family said the probe revealed that Koberger was following both Kaylee and Maddie on Instagram. See, that's interesting to me too. And I know Allie talked about this on her live earlier. I never saw any account that was following them that said Brian Koberger's name, but they do say that the newer version is that his account was called Krim Koberger. I don't know. I never found that, but the family said the probe revealed. Okay, Steve said, "We're not going to just sit back and cross our fingers and pray we're going to get justice." His wife said that she believes Koberger is responsible for the slayings, adding, "He's going to feel all of us staring at the back of his head, and he knows what he did to our daughter." And then there's more. They actually have some blueprints, but Koberger's defense team says there is no connection between him and any of the victims rubbishing the social media claims. The gag order means that any information about the case is scant, but legal filings have revealed the alleged killer's lawyers are questioning the genealogy used to arrest him, which we'll talk about on the next live. His team has also argued that the alleged footage of the Hyundai Elantra was misidentified, which yes and no. A professor at the criminology of the University of South Florida and a former FBI agent said she doesn't think it's a slam dunk. It seems that the defense is alleging there was a rush to judgment. Law enforcement made an arrest too fast and they focused on their client too quickly. Yeah, whatever. Bullshit. Oh. Okay. So I'll put that. I can grab the link real quick too, and I can just give it to you guys. Okay, let me see what you guys said. Yeah, I think that's it. That's how the sheath ends up there. Let's see. Interesting. How would they know? Oh, I didn't think so either. Maddie's bed is smaller of the two. I think that I think she was in her own room. I think she got up and went in there to see what was going on, and then he may have trapped her in there. It's very possible, but I don't think she was sleeping in there. I think she was sleeping in her own bed. I think it was Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. Yeah. Oh, no worries, honey. No worries. Yeah, I don't know. So I wanted you guys to be able to see that. Let me grab that link for you real quick, though, so that you guys have it if you want to read it. Dun, dun, dun. Give me 1 second because I closed that window. Now I got to go back and get it. And then I'm going to wrap it up. I know I was on here a lot longer than I expected to be. Is that going to be too long? Hey, Dan. This might be too long. It's Daily Mail, and the headline is Parents, University of Idaho. It is too long. Shoot. Sorry. It's the Parents, University of Idaho, Kaylee Gonsalves. So you guys can find your own. So there's one link here, but I'll put it in the description when we're done too, so you have it. But that's why I think it happened. I think that the target, if there was only one target, it was Maddie, or she was the primary target. Why, I don't know. I have no idea. I can't get in this guy's brain. It's too crazy. And then I think that Kaylee woke up and Kaylee went in the room to see what was going on, and he got her. And then he went downstairs, and Xana happened to be either eating or getting her DoorDash delivery, right around that time, and he knew she was awake, so then he went and killed her, and then found Ethan there too, so then he had to kill her. That's the way I think. I don't think he ever saw Dylan. think Dylan was in the dark and never even saw that she's there. I think that's how she survived. And I also think that there's a chance that he had gotten cut, and he knew, being a criminology PhD, that he did not want to leave his DNA at the crime scene. He needed to leave, and it didn't matter if there was anybody else there. He needed to get out. I think it's a possibility. Oh, it does? Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, well, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys for hanging out with me and talking about the cameras. I think most of us agree that there should be cameras. There's really no reason to not have them at this point in society. It's like it should just be expected that there's going to be cameras, and leave it at that. So, Idaho case is pretty twisted. It is pretty twisted, but I think we're on the right path. I think the prosecution is prosecuting the right guy. I can't say that he's guilty, because until he's guilty in a court of law, he's technically not, even though I do say that Casey Anthony's guilty and she was found not guilty. So it is what it is. But thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for hanging out with me for almost 3 hours. It's just crazy. If you're catching the replay and you hear this, thank you guys for watching the replay. Tomorrow is football. I might try to do a live tomorrow night. If not, we can start Monday. I still want to go over the genealogy stuff, even though I know it's a little older now. I still want to go over that because it's important to me. And then we can start the whole old interviews. I love you, Johnny Blackhawk. So, all right, you guys, I love you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And go and enjoy the rest of your Thursday. And if I don't see you tomorrow, then I'll see you Monday. All right, talk to you guys soon.